This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Very Hard to Submit. Go to vhtsny.com and check out their kimonos, compression gear, and apparel. This is a brand we are excited to be supported by. Their gear is high quality with a clean design. Go to vhtsny.com and see for yourself.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Grappler Union Podcast. On this episode, we have Doug Tono in studio. Doug is a 7th Dan in Judo and the owner and head instructor at Tohkon Judo Academy. Also in studio is Jason Bender. Jason just received his orange belt in Judo and is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Enjoy.
I hate the 6 minutes. It's what happens in that 6 minutes.
You told me using any technique that works. Never to limit myself to one style. Open mind.
We're not here to take part. We're here to take over.
In order to become more peaceful, in order for you to become better and strategize your life.
All right, we're live. Gentlemen, thank you for coming. I'm sorry that we had to brave such awful traffic to get here. Normally we do these things on like on a nice, calm Sunday afternoon, but schedules being what they were, we just had to
trying to mix three guys who just live the life, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I myself, I mean, don't get the wrong impression. I didn't literally get off the plane and come here, but I just got back from New Orleans. Did a training camp down there with our mutual friend Riley Bodycomb.
Swoon.
Oh, yeah. Is that the emotional reaction?
Was it a good camp? Everything went well, huh?
Yeah, no, it was. It
Cool
was.
stuff.
Like, I qualify a good camp based on a couple of things. Did I learn something? If for some reason I didn't learn something, did I get to practice something that needed some work? And let's be honest,
always
something.
work.
Yeah, always something that needs work. Did I walk away without any kind of injuries? I did. For the most part, everyone did.
A benefit.
Yeah, exactly right. We did have one unfortunate, like a freak injury, not even somebody going too hard or anything, but and then. Got to spend time with my friends and hang out and do cool stuff. Yeah, but you look like you've maybe. I'm talking to Jason here. You look like maybe you've done a camp recently or something. And didn't go as well.
Our mutual friend Joe Dankowski. We were just doing some light jiu-jitsu and
light with big air quotes here, right?
We actually weren't going that hard. Let's be honest. If he goes really hard, it's going to be a rough day for me. And he barely hit my eye, and I get this crazy black eye, and it barely felt like he even touched me. But
what did he barely touch you with?
Like just his knuckle. Like it was barely like
he punched you. That's what I'm hearing now.
I'm telling you, barely. Well, the funny thing was, then yesterday I go to a Muay Thai pad holding workshop.
Okay.
We knew it wasn't going to be a lot of people because that's a specialized thing. If you get a world champion showing their cool moves, you're going to have 30 people. But you go, how are you going to be a better coach? You're going to have what we had, which was 3 guys. The hilarious part was, of the 3 guys at this place, we had 4 total black eyes.
Oh my God.
It was hilarious.
But none of them were caused by pad holding, so no. You're okay there.
And this was a light workout, right?
Yeah, it was. It actually was. 4
Sounds
black
crazy,
eyes.
right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah. It's funny, like you just said, like normally that kind of thing doesn't get many people to show up. Had I been in town, I totally would want to go to that because, like, I've done just a little bit of Muay Thai, here and there, mostly through like JKD tie-ins and whatnot. And the last time I did when we were with Carlson over at Comprito's place, I was holding pads, and I'm like, man, I suck at this.
Yeah, it's an art form in itself.
Yeah, there's an absolute art to what's supposed to be done here, and I am no good at all.
Absolutely.
I'm probably
You're going to hurt yourself and your partner, and you're going to be...
my shoulder hurts.
Oh, yeah.
Like my partner's not getting the good snap on their punches the way they should. I suck. So yeah, that would definitely be. I've been like, oh, cool. There's a camp for this.
That's one of the best things I've learned from Sensei Doug here is like the sheer and utter importance of being a good partner, being a good jiu-jitsu, judo partner.
What we would typically call an uke.
An uke, absolutely.
Right. Are we going to nerd out on some judo terminology?
We are going to nerd out. I'm excited to nerd out.
As long as we've been running the show, and like for people that don't know, I've been like hovering in the background of the show kind of since the beginning, and I've always been the guy who's like, let's get more wrestlers and judo guys.
Right.
You know, let's get some more sambo guys. You know, let's find some Shuaijiao guy to bring on. You know, like because for the most part, the majority of our listening audience and the majority of our guests, I'd say historically, have been Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners. We've gotten, definite exceptions here and there. But, like, if I look at, like, what are we on? We're, like, on 100. I think this is episode 102. Like, the vast majority of those, like over 80 probably is jiu-jitsu, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
And the funny thing is we wouldn't have the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu boom without judo. I mean, it's all goes back to
what is this?
Blasphemy!
Right. Alternative facts. No, for sure.
And the flip side of that is jiu-jitsu has actually helped the judo. It's
because of Newaza?
Popularized judo quite a bit. A lot of Brazilian jiu-jitsu players are practicing judo now because they want to improve their standing games.
Right.
So I have a lot of jiu-jitsu players coming over. Jason is an example. They want to learn more stand-up judo,
right,
and throwing techniques.
I love hearing that, and I got to say this. So, I've been practicing judo for a number of years. The club that I predominantly train at is Midwest Judo and Jiu-Jitsu with Tim and Rob Boland. They have been telling me for as long as I've been going there. They're like, you should probably go train with Doug at some point, like because I like Sumigesh, Tomonagi, Yoko Tomonagi. I love I love the fact that when those throws fail, and I don't want them to fail ever, but I'm less than perfect. I can usually drag somebody into a Newaza situation, work an arm bar, work a sweep, something like that. And they're like, "Yeah, you're describing what Doug's best known for."
Yeah,
that's my favorite throw is Yoko Tomoinage.
Yeah.
So
So you again nerding out here a little bit. You play righty or lefty?
I am a righty.
Okay,
but I'll go lefty. I switch to both sides.
I'm excited here because everyone who shows me Yoko Tomonagi is a lefty, and I go and do it, and I'm like, okay, I can do it for this period of however long you're showing me, but I'm going to revert right back to my righty stance and right back to my lead, and it's going to go right out the window.
But the funny thing is, I do it right-handed, but to do Yoko Tomonagi, use your left foot.
Right.
It's left-footed. So it's a little awkward when someone learns how to do Tomoinage right hand,
right hand, right foot.
Right hand, right foot. And so now they're like, what? What are you doing? Yeah.
Right. This doesn't make any sense.
You're moving the wrong way. But no, it's a little different.
Yeah.
But when I first learned it, I learned it in Japan when I was training over there at Tohkon University. And my folks sent me over there to do, get better at judo, and I had no clue what I was getting myself into. They sent me over there, and I went over there, and I went to the university, and it was. I didn't know judo was so big. I mean, this was the judo team. They had 100 guys on the mat,
right?
All college kids training in judo, and they were all good black belts. I mean, they were all good athletes. They were there for judo. They all had scholarships for judo, so they were like the top level players. And Tohkon University team at that time was one of the powerhouse in judos. Here I come, this American kid, thinking that I'm gonna, do some good here, right? Oh my God, was I ever humbleized? It took me a month before I could actually stand on my feet to finish a practice. Not throwing away, just finish a practice.
So brutal warm-ups?
How long were you training? And by the time you got there, were you a black belt when you went to Japan?
I was a black belt. I was actually a secondary black belt, but I felt like a white belt when I went there. It was just insane. It wasn't so much the conditioning, the physical training. It was just the amount of judo. The amount of judo. And we were doing the warm-ups were actually pretty minimal.
Right.
It was 10, 15 minutes rolling, stretching, uchikomis. And then it was straight into Newaza Randuri. Right. 15 rounds of Newaza Randuri.
Jeez.
After 3, I was like, oh my God, I'm dead. I can't finish this. So I had to embarrass myself and crawl to the side and catch my breath and regain some strength and then go back out there, a few rounds later and try to finish up the workout. 15 rounds later, we're going to start doing Tachiwaza Randuri. I'm like, oh my God.
Which means stand up sparring.
Right.
So I last 3 or 4 rounds of that, and then I'm wiped. I'm
back to dying.
Back to the side, humiliating myself. But I didn't give up. I forced myself to go back and keep training. And so after about a month, that when I could actually stand on my feet and finish practice, again, not pinning anybody, not choking anybody, not arm barring, just defending myself, surviving, not throwing anybody, just getting thrown and getting up, getting thrown and getting up. I was able to finish a practice, which I was pretty happy about that.
Right.
I had to get my respect from the students there, gain some respect from them. So after we had a few camps, just when I thought I was getting ready, getting used to their practices, then they go and change it. Summertime comes, they're under break, and before they can get to go on vacation, they have 2 weeks of training camp.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, summer camp. Oh, we get to go swimming, horseback riding, whatever. No, it's just more judo. And I didn't think it'd get any harder, but I was wrong. I was wrong. It was 3 hours of training, newaza training in the morning. Actually, we start with like 2 hours of physical training, come back to the dojo for 3 hours of newaza, break for lunch, and then come back in the afternoon for another 3 hours of tachiwaza. And that was 1 week of that training camp. And then the second week was a little bit different, more tournaments for the second week. But I didn't think it could get worse, and I was wrong. And made it through that,
Right.
survived through that, and started going to the Kodokan while the kids were on break. Started working out at the Kodokan. And then I realized not everybody's this tough.
Right.
I could throw somebody at the Kodokan. So I started to get a little confidence back. So got my confidence back and stayed in shape for those couple of weeks the students were off. So we came back after summer break. We started training again, and I was actually able to keep up and start throwing some people. So I started to get a little respect back from the students from that point forward.
Right.
And that's when I got to the point where I could actually ask them, will you please teach me? Teach me that Yoko Tomoenage. Because when I went there, I had never seen Yoko Tomoenage before.
Really? Okay. Wow.
But everybody there was doing it. All the lightweights were doing there. And one of the head senseis there was Moriwaki Sensei, who was a 60-kilo champion, Japanese champion. And actually, he was a world champion, too. He went on to win the world championships. But he was their number one lightweight in Japan at the time. And that's why all the lightweights went to that university because of him. And they all did Yoko Tomoenage. And here I am. I'm getting thrown left and right, and I don't even know what throw they're doing. I said, I got to learn this. As soon as I can stand on my feet, I'm going to learn this.
So I got to ask a couple of things here that just all jump to mind. First of all, when was this? Like, give me a date.
Oh, this was back. I just turned 20 years old. So this was back in 1979, from June of 1979 to January of 1980.
Wow.
I spent 6 months in Japan training.
Where did you stay then?
I stayed I went there. I have relatives there that I never met before. So the first few weeks I stayed with them. They showed me how to get around and use their train system and how to get back and forth. But after that, I moved into the university and stayed at the dormitories.
Wow.
And got to make friends that I could not speak with for, but,
Went with zero Japanese or just minimal? Or?
I knew minimal Japanese. I knew Judo Japanese.
Right.
I knew food and all, but not too much conversation.
Okay.
But after a while, you make
Figure
friends.
things
Yeah, figure things out. And you used a lot of hand signals and pointing. And
See, when I went to Japan, which was quite recently, I also went with almost no Japanese, but I had Google Translate. and also, a lot of folks there, have way better English than I could ever dream of having Japanese.
Absolutely.
So managed to get by just fine. So you had never seen Yoko Tomoenage. So in my mind, like I haven't done judo that long. Kashiwazaki, obviously, like the man when it comes to Yoko Tomoenage.
Absolutely.
But if I'm thinking correctly, that's before he really hit the scene big, isn't it? Or is that right around the...
Right around that time. Right around that time. It may have been the year or two after that, but I mean, he was already...
already a name.
He was a name there, but
wasn't the man.
Yes.
Okay.
Because he made his name in 1980, I guess, 1984.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought it was the early 80s.
84 Olympics. I think that's when he won a gold medal.
Yeah.
But he was a master Tomoenage and Jujigatsume. I mean, he could do that so many different ways.
So what was your throw going to Japan? What were your main attacks then?
His Tokuiwaza?
My Tokuiwaza back then was Seiwai-nage. Marote Seiwai-nage, right side and left side, drop Seiwai-nage, which all lightweights did at that time.
Right.
But, of course, Japan, all the lightweights, they did it faster and better and stronger.
How dare they? The typical Japanese model. I see what you're doing. I'm going to make it better.
So trying to do Seiwai-nage on these guys that are, shorter than me, stockier than me, stronger than me, faster, it was impossible. It was like, there's no way. They dropping underneath me, and I was like, God, I didn't even see that. How'd they do that? So I figured there's no way I'm going to do that. Be able to do seoi nage on them, and I'm just trying to figure out how to do this yoko tomoe nage. So there wasn't a whole lot I could do against them. But after I started to get a little bit of confidence back, the one thing I did find out was I can't attack forward and back, but moving sideways. I found out they were a little bit weaker moving sideways than I was. So foot sweeps, ashibarais. I was able to catch some of the guys. Not all of them. And if I caught them once, I probably didn't catch them again. But if I did get them,
it was only once, right?
Yeah, so with the foot sweep.
So was that the beginning? Like before that, if anybody's ever trained with Doug, you're gonna find out that the way you move is amazing. I've never seen a martial artist quite use footwork the way you do. It's masterful. It's like watching a boxer. The way, if anybody watched Lomachenko this weekend, the way he pivots off of his opponents, it's
circular.
It's amazing. Not just circular, but the way you turn the guy. You know he's going to step, and you're going to go ahead and go right into the next technique right after that. It's amazing.
You sound like you may have been thrown by him once or twice before.
If I can only get 10% as good as he is at taking these angles, I'll be happy. But were you straightforward before that, and then you started hitting your angles off of this?
Well, I was never really a power player. Right. I was never a strong physically, physical person. Mm-hmm. I was always smaller than most of my opponents, so I had to use something. And using head to head, I would probably lose that battle because most of the guys were stronger than me. So I had to figure out how to either get underneath them with speed with like a drop seoi nage or a tomoe nage, or move circular or move in diagonals, but never straight on head to head. And I also learned later on, especially by being in Japan, that footwork, ashiwaza, you have to have good ashiwaza to set people up and throw them if you can, but mainly to make them move. My judo's always been better when I'm moving. So ashiwaza is the best way to get someone to move. And you get stronger people, bigger people who just like to clamp with two strong arms. They always forget about their feet. So you start making them think about their feet, they loosen up their arms a little bit. So that's always been my key to success, as it were. When I can move somebody, I have a better chance. When I get locked down, crunched, it wasn't such a good turnout for me.
Right. Been there a time or two myself.
Yeah, oh, it's the worst.
Yeah, but I mean, and frankly, similar strategies. I come from a wrestling background, so I was a little bit more likely to cut an angle and shoot in on somebody than I was to cut an angle and try to foot sweep. My ashiwaza is still novice level compared to where I want it to be.
They make it look so easy, don't they? You're like, you just kick that leg out and you fall down.
Look, the guy's sideways in the air. That's amazing. How did that happen?
He just tripped him. That's all he did.
Timing and angles. What's up with that?
He just tripped him.
Yeah. That's what you could also say. That's kind of lazy man judo, right? Doesn't take a lot of power. Doesn't take a lot of energy.
Right.
But it takes a lot of timing and technique.
Yeah, it's finesse.
So it is finesse.
I've actually got one guy, and mind you, he's a heavyweight. He trained at the Coens. He does judo with us, and the number of times, and I'm embarrassed to admit this, honestly, but we're going to say it anyhow. The number of times where he's foot swept me just right off the grip, got the lapel, grabbed it, pulled me just slightly off balance, and wham, feet go right out from under me. And he hates the fact that he can only comfortably do that in the gi. So, we take the jacket off, and he's like, I lost my collar grip. Now I got to actually work.
Well, it was funny. My wrestling coach from Russia, from Belarus, the other day we were working.
You can say his name. It's okay.
Alex Matsuzov, great guy. He's one of my favorites. We were doing something. He just stopped us and he goes, "Judo sweep." After we're sweating, we're like, just shrugs his shoulders, goes, "Judo sweep," and then he goes and does it. I go, "Oh, Sasai Sudi Komiyashi," and he goes, "Whatever." Anyway, throw, trip, fall down. But so when did you start judo then, Doug?
So I was 10 years old. The church that I belonged to, the Midwest Buddhist Temple, they started judo as part of the cultural program at the church. So my parents and all the other parents of the kids, they had us in Boy Scouts. They had us playing all these different sports, part of the Japanese community. So judo is just another one of the sports that they put us in to keep us out of trouble, keep us busy, occupied.
Did that part work? The trouble?
It kept
maybe
us
a little.
busy. It kept us busy. Kept us, off the streets. But it was, a whole group of us starting together. Monday we did, softball, then Tuesday and Thursday we did judo, and, so every night of the week was something. And it was fun. I enjoyed it and just kept with it. And my dad, especially, he was the one that made me stay with it. There were times, when all my friends, as we got older, high school age, they all started to drop out one by one. And so I kind of like, wow, Dad, is it maybe they're all not doing judo anymore? Maybe I can take off. He goes, no, you're going to judo, which I apprate tremendously now. But back then it was like, they're going to a movie, Dad. Can I go to a movie tonight? No, you got judo. So back then some days were kind of rough. I was like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? But fortunately, my parents had a vision that I didn't know at the time, like sending me to Japan. I was like, yeah, sure, well, I'll go. But they had a vision. They saw something, and they pushed me through it, and I'm happy they did.
They were right.
Yeah. So anyways, I was 10 years old when I started, and I never really took off and never stopped, except for a couple years in high school when I wrestled at Lane Tech, and it was just too much to do wrestling and come back to judo. So my dad actually let me take off from judo practices during those wrestling days. And as soon as wrestling season was over,
right back to
judo. Right back to judo. And might as well, because I didn't really know how to wrestle when I went up for the team. I just threw people.
Right.
This is we'll teach you the rules later. Just
put them down, keep them down.
Did you have some throws that were working right off without the gi?
Sure. You lock up with the head, so the easiest thing to do was koshiguruma. Just headlock, koshiguruma. Just throw the hips in there, and I just kept working that, and it seemed I had success. So I said,
pinning right off of that.
Yeah, and then right into kesagata, man.
Right.
And I was like, okay, now what?
No, you won.
Yeah, you won.
That's good. Yeah, my son, my eldest son, did judo with. All of my sons have done judo with me for at least some period of time, but my eldest son did judo, and I encouraged him to try wrestling in high school, and I sat in a couple of practices. They actually let me be like not. I don't want to be like I was coaching the rest, but I was helping out as one of the fathers that kind of knows wrestling,
right.
And I just remember like his favorite throw is koshiguruma, so he's like, oh well, I can do this here,
right.
And he's trying to throw all these kids, and the coach is like, we're working double legs, man. But the heads
this is working.
Right. So,
legs too far away.
So he goes into the competition season having not really learned how to shoot very well, and being a judo kid, and I just remember his coach at one point yelling at him, "Don't grab the head! Don't grab." Okay.
Well, whatever works.
It worked. Just do it.
Yeah,
do it.
It was like my first couple judo tournaments where I was not quite getting wasn't quite getting what would be considered a beautiful judo takedown, but we'd end up in like a wazadi position, which meant that I got the guy to like turtle up or something, and then they were expecting me to just stop. They were waiting for mate, no. And I said no, and I would put them in my side control, and let's be honest, other judo beginners didn't have an answer for my side control. So
what is this sorcery? Why are you so heavy?
So that first couple times I did a judo tournament, it was arm bars and pens, and I'm like, and I remember Andre Campos was my instructor for the first couple judo tournaments, and he would just go, "You won," because you did not win with judo, but you won with jiu-jitsu, but you won.
Hey, it's all comes from the same. My early competition, like my first memory of judo competition, I went to the tournament. I think I was a green belt at the time. I can't remember exactly, but my first opponent threw me just like with like Osoto Harai. Can't tell you exactly which one it was, and I landed like on my butt on my side, and some moron was like, "Oh, I'll spin towards his head," and turned it into a rolling upon on myself. So I'm like, "Oh, that was terrible." Okay, we're not going to do that again. Okay, so and this is before the leg touch ban, mind you. So the next guy, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go back to my like best wrestling takedown, which is a high crotch converted to like a double with a back heel trip.
Okay,
and I don't know whether the guy was just super practiced at it or my technique was not fast enough. I went to shoot in on that guy, and he Uchima'd the hell out of me, which is like the classic judo counter to that, of course.
Sure.
But yeah, I was just like, whoop, boom. done. I'm like, well, that was the shortest tournament ever. And then, unfortunately for me, just timing wise, like very shortly after that, the first leg touch ban came in, which was not like a full ban, but had to be used in combination. I'm like, oh man, like this takes away a lot of my best weapons. And the mature thing perhaps would have been being like, okay, clearly this is a challenge to myself to get better at ashiwaza and my big throws and whatnot. But instead it was, nope, taking my ball, going home. Don't want to do judo anymore. I'm going to stick with other grappling formats. But yeah, like that was my early experiences with judo was losing dramatically.
I think anybody who starts in judo and goes to tournaments at a young age or early on, that's just part of the learning process. You're going to lose. You're going to lose.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
going to lose. I mean,
often in spectacular fashion.
And I think that's good though, especially for kids. I think losing makes you tougher. Because a judo match, a jiu-jitsu match, a wrestling match, it's just two people out there. One person's going to win, one person's going to lose. Absolutely. So you got to be pretty tough. I mean, you got to have some pretty thick skin, and you have to have some, guts behind you to get out there. First of all, just to get out there, and then if you're the loser, you got to face everybody. It wasn't like you can blame it on your teammates or they didn't hold up their end of the deal. No, it's you. So you have to take that loss. And that's pretty tough for a young kid to get out there to take that loss. I mean, it's pretty traumatic sometimes. So
yeah, I've seen the tears.
There's lots of tears at kids tournaments.
A lot of pressure on the kids. So when our kids fight, I try to tell them, hey, it's okay. As long as you go out there and you perform. By perform, I mean you do the things that we practice during practice. You try those things. If it worked, great. If it didn't work, that's okay. That's why we practice. Right. So as long as you attempted to try them and you didn't just stand there and freeze up and do nothing. And, you tried some judo, you tried the throws we were practicing. That's a successful tournament. That's a good match. Okay. Whether you win or lose, you got nothing to be ashamed of. You went out there, you did your judo and you tried. Right. Okay? And winning, great. You won. Lose. Okay. You tried. Come on back. Let's go back. Now we can work some more. So
that's where you really learn anyway, right?
Yep.
When are you learning? Did you start competing then as a kid here in Chicago?
I did. And I had the same stories, went out there, boom, done. I'm like, what the heck? Okay, this is not so fun. So much
judo
fun.
is quite unforgiving that way.
Right? It is a humbling sport. And I was small, too. When I was growing up, I was very, very small. And there were no lightweight division weight classes.
Right
now. It was you're 13 years old. There's a lightweight division and there's a heavyweight division. If there's 20 kids in the division, 10 of you are going to be light, 10 of you are going to be heavy. Wherever it's split, that's it, right? So I was always like way down on the light side. I mean, the very, very light side. And so I was like, oh, I'm looking up all these guys, and it was brutal. It was brutal. So yeah, I took my beatings when I was younger, but.
What was the first big tournament that you remember winning? Like at what point did you start winning, and then the first big one?
Locally, I started to do okay. I started to figure things out, who people were, who the tough guys were, what clubs had the powerhouse clubs, and you kind of figure out, okay, what throws they did.
Are those clubs still around?
Not too many of them anymore. No. There's kids from those clubs are now teaching,
right?
But they're not, the same senseis aren't there anymore, or very few of them are around. But we compete. And you start to get a little bit closer every tournament. You get a little bit closer, a little bit closer. You last, instead of getting thrown in 10 seconds, you last 30 seconds and then 1 minute. And then pretty soon you start having a little more success here and there. But it probably wasn't until another year or so of actually competing that had some success. But I do remember our first team match. My sensei, we were all beginners. We all started at the same time. We were all white belts. And it was maybe like 6 months into it, he took us to the Buddhist temple of Chicago, who they had been going on forever. They've been going on for a long, long time. But it was just a friendly combined workout team match. So he took all our kids, our team went over there, most of us were white belts in their team, and most of them were higher ranks. And they lined us up, tried to pair us up by weight and size, and we had a team match. So you're fighting, and I was towards the beginning, but maybe like 5 or 6 in the middle there. So everyone's going out there, and we're getting demolished. Bam, pin, slam, thrown, pin. So I get out there, and I'm like, holy crap. So I'm fighting, and I actually won. I won the match. I don't know how. I won the match somehow, and I think one other guy tied. So the two of us, we felt like heroes that day because we won. We were the only ones that won the match. So But that was very, very early on in my judo practice days. But as a junior, I really didn't have much success nationally because I'd be going out there 15 years old, 16 years old, and weighing like 90 pounds and maybe not even that heavy, under 100 pounds. And, lightweight started, I was the start, but it finished like at 120, 130. And then the other kids were up in, 180 pounds. I was like, wow, okay, this is fun. So nationally, I never did much, but not till I got into the seniors when it got to be weight classes. Actually, I should say towards the end of the junior divisions, I started doing well. And nationally, I won the Junior Olympics and never really won the Junior Nationals because I was always too small. But somehow the Junior Olympics, the birth date cutoff was beneficial for me because it was right before my birthday. So I was a year younger than the actual age group. So a year older. I fit into that older group. So I had half a chance.
Right. You had a little more experience.
Yeah, I had a 1 year more experience, so I was able to actually hold my own a little bit. So I won the Junior Olympics 1 year. And so I think that's probably what started making judo a lot more fun. A lot more. It was always fun, but
winning is way more fun.
Winning is really fun. Yeah.
Losing builds character. Winning is still fun.
So you went pretty far competitively in judo, though.
I did. So that kind of started me on my path in the seniors. When I started fighting in the seniors, it was weight classes. At that first year, I think that was back in 1977, the weight class was 139 pounds. The lowest weight class was 139 pounds. Well, I was weighing about 130 by that time.
Right.
17 years old. And, I thought, oh, hey, I might have a chance here, right? Mm-hmm. And it was down in St. Louis. I'll never forget my very first match at my very first senior national championships. I was still a brown belt. I go there, and I thought, oh, okay, seniors, let's see what it is. No clue. Not a clue what it was about. My first match, my draw was against a reigning national champion, Keith Nakasone. Oh, my God. And this guy was on his way to be on the Olympic team, and he was already the reigning champion. He was good. And everybody kept telling me, watch out for his uchimata. He's lefty. Watch out for his left uchimata. Okay, so I'm walking out there. Okay, watch out for left uchimata. It took us, we bowed. It took like 5 seconds to walk, grab, boom, Osorogari. Done. Finished. Like, okay.
He was looking at you like, they warned him about my uchimata.
Little do they know, I do more than 1/3.
But so that was my introduction to the seniors.
Welcome.
Yeah, right. So, but that was 77, and every year we would fight at least 2 or 3 times because we would have the senior national championships, we'd have the U.S. Open, we'd have the different Olympic trials or World Championship trials or some type of trials. Or at that time they had the U.S. Olympic Sports Festival. Back those days, it was like the mini Olympics for all the top U.S. athletes, track and field, judo, everything. And it was pretty cool. I mean, we march in with all sweats and, every region had their own colors and all. So that was kind of neat.
Yeah. But this was an era of excellent tracksuits.
And hair. How was your hair back then? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
Did you have a mullet, Doug?
Those were that big hair days.
Big hair.
But we'd fight 3 or 4 times a year. And so, he kept beating me, but every year I was getting closer and closer and closer. And I was like the new kid on the block, the youngster coming up. And most of the top players, they were a good 5 to 10 years older than I was. I was just this youngster coming in. So they taught me a lesson. It says, welcome to the seniors, big boy, little boy. So, but I didn't give up. Didn't want to quit. And I kept trying. And I kept getting closer and closer. And I would see him fight the other top players from Chicago, which at that time, Chicago had some of the top players in the country.
Really?
So, and you had to qualify for the national championships back then. You had to do the pre-nationals in your region. And only first, second, third got to go to the nationals. So just to make it out of Chicago was tough. I mean, we had George Cozy, Doug Morchica, and we had some really tough, and they were number 2 and number 3 in the country.
Wow.
Keith Nakasone was on top, and we had some other tough guys there. So just to make it to the nationals was tough. So I figured, well, if I could make it to the nationals, I might have part of a chance, half a chance. But so training with those guys on a daily basis or weekly basis also helped me because they were here training just as well. We had our national team practices here, so I got a taste of what the top level players were working on and how tough they were and how physical they were. So it kind of helped me grow up faster in the senior ranks. So after time, over a couple of years, I just kept getting closer and closer to, Nakasone. He was the goal. Everybody was after him.
Right.
But I would see him go to Newaza. His Newaza was awesome. He trained in Japan, in Okinawa, quite often. Every year he would go back and train. And so when he would come, and the guys that I trained with here, I know they were physically strong, and they were just tearing me up on the mat. And Keith would just take him, turn him over like a baby, and pin him. And I was like, holy smokes. Okay, make a note of that. Don't go to mat with him. So I did everything I could to stand up and fight him, fight him on my feet. And it helped. I was able to last longer.
Yeah.
But back probably about 1979, two years later, we're almost even. It was the national championships in 1979. We were fighting. It was back then. I think it was a 5-minute match. We were fighting. He knocked me down for a coca. Back then we had cokas.
Different scoring system back then too.
Was that like a quarter point? Is that what that was?
Eighth of a point.
Eighth of a
Eighth point. Yeah. And then there were Yukos.
Yeah.
And then was for the jiu-jitsu people, that would be like if you had an advantage for an advantage or something.
Well, yeah, but like cumulatively, of course, the goal is to get to Ippon, and back then, correct me if I'm wrong, they added together. Like two Wazaris
added up to Ippon,
right?
But Yukos and Kokas
did not add up.
You can get
so they
10
were just,
of them.
Yeah, they were cumulative, more refined advantages, basically.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So we were pretty even going into it. He knocked me down for a coca, and I knocked him down for a coca. I don't know how, but I got a coca. So we were tied going into the end of it. And back then it was no overtime. It was the referee's decision.
Right. Three referees
hold up. It was a split decision, and he won the decision. So I knew I was getting close then.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I was getting closer then. But then I think that's kind of what helped my parents decide, you need more training.
Right.
You need to go to Japan. Mm-hmm. Send me out to Japan. Talk to the other senseis. Obviously, they had it all planned out. My parents, the senseis, they all said, okay. They decided, and they told me, yeah, you should go to Japan.
Right.
So,
but also like your number one opponent at that point, he's going to Japan.
Right.
This is probably tied in their minds.
Can't beat him,
This
join
is
him,
clearly
right?
part of his success. We got to do the same.
Yeah, that was his regular training routine. Living in Japan, training in Japan, and coming back. And
so, what is it about their training what makes it so different that you go to Japan? And I mean, how would you consider? Like, how much would I benefit right now than training here?
Oh, tremendously!
Really?
I mean, it's the difference of having 5 guys, 6 guys, or at Tohkon we have 20 guys to work out with, which is that's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good
20
turnout
good competitors to work out with.
Right.
Going to Japan, you got 80 to 100.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Tough. I mean, top caliber competitors. Right. I mean, here Tohkon we'll have some good fighters. We have good competitors, but we'll have masters.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll have some kids, kind of mixed.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have a lot.
Yeah.
But now you go to Japan, you'll have 100 college kids, from 18 to 22-year-old, in their prime, strong as ever, and ready to go. And they have good judo. They have really good judo, real good newaza, real good tachiwaza, and they all have their own specialty throw. Some are good at uchimata, some are good at seiwanage, some at yoko tomoenage, haragoshi. You have the whole slew of techniques there. So you have to get good at defending those throws. And then you have lefties and righties, and so you will get tougher, or your falls are going to get really good. One of the two.
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
Still improvement, right?
Absolutely,
Yes,
absolutely.
yes, it is.
When I went to Japan, and I've probably told this story in the podcast before, so we'll try to shorten it. One of the things that I had been told, like it was always the dream. I'm like, I'm going to go to Japan. I'm going to train at the Kodokan, and this would be like the culmination of a lifelong dream to do martial arts in Japan.
Right.
Okay.
Still on my bucket list for sure.
Oh, you're going to do it. We're going to make sure of that.
I will.
Yep.
So I get to Tokyo. I do finally go to the Kodokan. It took a couple of days to work everything out and whatnot. And I had been told, not like I don't want to sound like some harshly judgmental thing, but I've been told that like if you're going to Japan to train judo, you go to one of the universities, because the Kodokan, while it's like the spiritual heart and soul of everything we do,
It's not where the competitors.
it's not where the
train.
top competitors train. Like almost all those guys are on like the private teams,
Right.
or the university teams, the club teams. So like, not like I walked in there and I'm like, king of the hill or anything like that, but I'm like, okay, you know, like this will probably be a fairly nice practice. You know, I'll get a great sample of like what judo in Japan is like.
It's an open workout too.
Right, exactly.
So you can go hard or you can kick back.
Find some older guy who's you know like hey, let's just do some newaza over here in the corner.
Oh,
yeah. So I'm literally going in and I'm like, okay, this won't be a room full of murderers.
Right.
Well, I get up to the counter where you like sign in, you fill out all your information and whatnot, and the woman asks like, you know, what's your judo experience, and you know, I explained to her, and she looks at me and she's just slightly got like this concerned look, and in like brilliant, perfect English, mind you, she's like, I want you to understand that tonight all of the universities are here. Because the Kodokan is neutral grounds. So the night I had chosen, I think it was Wednesday night, the night I had chosen, actually all the killers had showed up. And she was like, so I want you to be careful because you might die. She didn't say it quite like that. And sure enough, like it was a room full of like Olympians and national champions and murder. Yeah.
18 and 20-year-olds in their prime of their life.
And we had multiple visiting teams from, I think that night I worked out with athletes from Japan, Ukraine, Britain, France, Germany, Australia. And it's like, it wasn't like one or two guys from like, it was there was like a whole college team from like the Brazilian. It was just nuts. I was not ready.
That's another absolutely fascinating thing that I'm learning about judo. It's like jiu-jitsu from what I've seen, jiu-jitsu overall, yeah, different schools have different styles, but when you walk in to almost any jiu-jitsu school in America, let it be a Gracie Baja school versus a 10th Planet, Carlson Gracie, you kind of know what you're in for. You know, you go to a 10th Planet, you know you're probably going to want to watch your feet more than you would at other schools, but overall it's jiu-jitsu. But from what I'm learning, there's completely different styles. Like a German style is different than a British style. It is different than a French style. And they even have different grips named after them from...
Well, the technique, judo is judo. I mean, the judo techniques are the same, but how they grip you, how they grip you is a little bit different. Eastern European judo is much more physical. I mean, they'll still judo. I mean, they're still grabbing you.
Sure.
They just grab me a lot harder, a lot stronger. And, you know, I mean, the athletes today, oh my God, there's such strong athletes, tremendous athletes, and they have some power. I mean, you look at them, that's why they're world champions and Olympians, because they have something extra.
Right.
Besides all the judo, they also have that extra athletic strength and ability and speed. So they're just tremendous athletes. But yeah, the style's a little bit different, you know, a little more upper body physical, you know, depending on who you're fighting. You know, they're not all that way, but generally speaking.
Yeah, you can make some stereotypical statements like a very, like Japanese style judo oftentimes is very crisp and precise. It, you know, even if people have different preferences in throwing, the stance tended, it's especially, again, pre-leg touch ban. So we're talking about like differences also based on the rules and not just the regions. But, you know, a tendency for more upright play, whereas you would see Americans and Eastern Europeans, you know, just say 10 years ago, you know, tended to have lower stance. It was more bent over. The French, I think, in general, have a more upright stance, a lot more ashiwaza.
Mongolians known for like lifting techniques.
Yes,
more.
under gripping, unhooking the arms and lifting, getting the hips underneath and body lifts, and
which is gosh, if judo can be scarier, it's when you lift me completely off of the ground and hold me up there while my legs are kicking.
I thought you were just going to say like if you add Mongolian to anything, it gets
does, right?
scarier.
Yeah.
And you know, it's funny you were talking about the different styles. In the past, back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, Japan was dominating with their stand-up judo, clean judo. Well, Europeans, you know, they got smarter. They know, okay, well, we're not going to beat them at this finesse game. Let's overpower them.
Right.
So they started getting stronger, more physical, and started crunching and munching, and it worked. And in the 80s and 90s, Japanese wasn't dominating anymore. Really? I mean, other countries were coming in and
the Russian invasion.
Russians, yes, and they were dominating judo on a world-class level, world championships and Olympic level. Japan came back and they said, okay, We got the finesse part, but now we got to get stronger. So they changed their strategies, and you see these young guys today, they're not weak. I mean, these are strong boys now, and they're just tough as nails too. So they're getting back. I don't think anybody dominates anymore. I mean, the lightweights, they still have I don't want to say they dominate, but they have a strong hold still. But in the upper weights, they sometimes
Are you excited for the
well.
American team right now?
We still have some work to do on the American team.
Well, I mean, this is also I don't know, how do I say this? This is a less experienced team that we're fielding for the next.
Correct.
Are Travis and Kayla both not competing?
Kayla's definitely retired.
Yeah, Kayla's MMA right now.
Okay.
Right. And Travis, I'm pretty sure he's retired. I don't know if he officially said it or not.
He should be.
Yeah.
I mean, like
he had his run.
I don't want to say it to his face. I don't know him that well.
That's
but-
one man right there where I'm like,
He's a tough guy. I mean,
he
he's a
is.
tough guy.
He is.
I remember you telling me when he first started to hit the scene that you're rather surprised by his success because when you saw him coming up through the ranks, yeah.
Oh yeah, I saw him when he was younger over at San Jose State, and he was a brown belt, I think, when he went out there. Maybe he was really young, but he wasn't nearly as physically strong as he was. He had his limbs, and he was flexible as heck, but he was all over the place, all over the place. Tough. I mean, he was mentally tough. He would just go and go and go. He would be there practice all the time, but his judo was pretty wild. And I saw him make it to the finals at the U.S. Open, which I was actually kind of surprised. And he got thrown, and I think he did some kind of funky split or something like that. He really hurt himself bad. But I mean, he had the fight. He had the fight. He was always tough. But yeah, his judo was all over the place. And he got some judo at San Jose State, but I think when he went out to Jimmy Pedro's is when he really developed some really strong, fundamentally sound judo. Yeah, and he did quite well with it too. You know, so
yeah, I mean, like obviously Kayla is at this point like the best athlete we've produced for judo by Olympic success.
Right,
ever.
right. Only two-time gold medalist from America, right?
Well, let's clarify that for people that don't follow judo. Only gold medal
two-time gold
in
medalist.
judo that we've ever won, let alone
Really?
she is now
America's
two-time.
never had a gold medal. That's right.
Yeah,
never.
That's right.
Prior to that, it's hold on. Let me. Bob Berlin was
Bob
our
Berlin
first
took a
silver medalist.
correct.
Right, and then Travis took silver.
And then we were just discussing who some of the pro wrestling fans, old school, you know, I love my old school pro wrestling. Old school is Bad News Brown, who had a rivalry with Roddy Piper back in the day.
Alan Kolash.
Alan Cohen.
Alan
Alan
Kolash took
Cohen.
a bronze medal in the Olympics back, I want to say 64 or 68 maybe. I don't know. He was one of our first ones besides Jim Bregman.
Right.
Silver medal? Bronze medal.
Got to be bronze.
Bronze medal.
Yeah.
Bronze medal. Yeah, he was a bronze medal. He was our first.
Right.
And Ben Campbell took a bronze medal. Alan Kolash took a bronze
Now,
medal.
a name that should be on there, I think would have been on there if you don't mind telling the stories, is you got rather close to the Olympics. Two times you should have had your shot at the Olympics, but they were kind of swiped out from under you.
Well, in 1980, we boycotted the Olympics.
So there you go.
And we went
In your
into,
prime.
well, yeah. We I just came back from Japan too.
Did you think that realistic? How were you feeling going into that?
I felt good. I mean, I just came back from Japan.
Right.
6 months training in Japan, and I came back in January. In February, we had the Olympic trials, but they already told us that was just a showpiece because we already knew we were going to boycott the Olympics. But
Wow.
it was all scheduled, and we fought, and I finally beat Keith Nakasone.
Oh.
I beat Keith Nakasone, the reigning champion. And it was like, oh, I was so high, and I won. And my next match, I lost.
There's life for you.
You get this emotional roller coaster, and I came crashing down. And he still ended up taking first place, and I think I took third after finishing up. But he went on to make the Olympic team, which we didn't go to the Olympics. I think the Olympic team had a trip to the White House to see Jimmy Carter. But from that point forward, that did earn me a spot to make it to the Dutch Open that year, which was one of the bigger tournaments. At that time, it was one of the big Grand Prix tournaments. They didn't have Grand Prix, but would have qualified as one of those big tournaments. And that was my first international tournament. And I basically got to go because Keith Nakasone retired and all the other guys dropped out. And I was like still ranked in the top 5. So they took 2 teams, and top 3 guys didn't want to go, so they were getting down to the bottom of the barrel. So they asked me, "Hey, you want to go?"
Hey, I'll take it.
Yeah. I asked my dad, "Hey, Dad, what do you think? Can I go on this trip to Holland?" He says, "We're going to fight in a tournament there." And he talked to the managers and everything, and they said, "Okay." And I says, "Wow, they're going to give us sweatsuits and everything." So
yes, tracksuits.
They're paying for everything. Back then, USA Judo, or it was USJI at the time, they had money and they paid for the teams to go on these trips. So I went, and they sent us our tickets. We met the whole team in New York, and I was like the newbie on the team. I didn't really know anybody. Well, I knew who the players on the team were. I knew the national champions.
Didn't know
they
them.
Didn't know
they
me.
Know you.
They didn't know me. So I'm walking through the airport, and all these are meeting everybody. I was like the first one there, and I had no clue where I was going, what I was doing, and all of a sudden I see Tommy Martin, our national champion, and Brett Barron and Mike Swain and all these, national champions. I'm like, holy smokes, I'm on a team with these. And then it kind of dawned on me like, wow, this is real. Yeah. This is real. Okay. And these guys been on international trips before. And I'm like the little mouse in the corner, like, whoa, wow. Like, what am I doing here? So we meet the whole team, and everybody, we get together and we travel overseas. We go to Europe, and we fight in this big Dutch Open Championships. And for me, it was huge. It was the biggest tournament I've ever been in. And all the players, they all had experience at international tournaments. So we were doing our team practices and everything. And I was just in awe of like being on the same mat with all these national players, Tom Masterson and all these guys. I'm like, wow. And so it comes time for the tournament. We weigh in. And the other thing, I was cutting weight. I had to get back down to 132 pounds. I was a lightweight. I had to cut my weight down. So I was more worried about that. But made the weight. And I said, I can't go on this trip and not make weight, man. That would be awful.
Right. Oh, God.
So I was cutting weight. We go to weigh-ins. And then the pull sheets come out. Okay. And everybody's running over to the coach and asking him, "Oh, what's my draw? What's my draw?" And he's going through it and telling him, "Oh, you got to fight Russia. You got to fight this. You got a good draw. You got to fight something." And I was like, I don't care. I don't know anybody. I don't know any other country. They don't know me. What difference does it make, right? I don't care. I don't know.
Bliss sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. So finally, they're all done. He goes through everyone's draw that day. He comes to me. He goes, "Well, Tono, you got a tough draw."
Thanks.
Great. Yeah,
thanks.
And back then it was a pool system, right? You have the 4-man pools all the way down, and I think there was 120 competitors, so they had to cut it down to 60, 64. Mm-hmm. So the 4-man pools, you fight round robin in the pool, and only 2 players come out. Right. The number 1 player and number 2 player. One goes on one side of the pool, the other one goes on the other side of the pool, and they alternate every pool. So in my pool, I had the number 1 Russian player. I had the Bulgarian, who was a junior world champion, and I had a Polish guy who was also tough. I don't remember any of their names, but they were all good. And then there was me. I was like, okay, this ought to be fun. First match against a Russian player. And we're fighting, and I kind of had this feeling like everybody expected me to lose. I'm like a nobody on the team. So I do Ochigari, and he counters me, foot sweeps me, and he gets a Yuko. And that was the only score. And we're fighting for 5 minutes. We're going the whole time. And it was the only score of the match, and he won. So I was mad. And so we bowed out. He won. I sit down, and I kind of had this feeling. What made me mad was I felt like I could beat him. But what I really felt like, I let everyone else on the team down. Or I did what they expected me to do. They figured, he's going to lose. Right. Yeah, he's a nobody. He's going to lose. So that upset me more. So the next match, I had to fight the Bulgarian junior world champion, and he was strong as heck, and we're fighting, and I beat him. But it went 5 minutes, but I beat him by a Kolka or Yuko, or I don't remember what it was. I ended up beating him. The next match was a Polish player, and we're fighting, same thing. They're just brutes. I mean, they're just super strong. And I beat him. So now I'm number 2. And so now the Russian player goes on one side, and I go on the other side. And then I find out now the real tournament starts. I'm like, What the heck was that? I was just fighting for my life.
Just a warm up.
I was warm up. Now we're in a 60-minute 4-man pool, and now we had to fight our way back down to the finals. Well, I had no clue who I was fighting anymore, and so we started fighting back. I won. I won. I get to the finals. I'm in the finals against the Russian guy again on the other side. All of my matches went the full minute, 5 minutes. In the pool went 5 minutes, and in the brackets went 5 minutes. So now we're in a final match. Back then, the final matches were 7 minutes long. So I'm exhausted. And they took a break. We had dinner break, and we come back in the evening for finals. And our coach, Jimmy Woolley, says, "Hey, Duggar, you're doing great. You know, got one more match. Give me everything you got." I says, I'm tired. Come on.
How many matches are we talking here?
It was the 3 in the bracket, in the pool. Then so from 64 to 32, 32 to 16, 16 to 8, 8 to 4, 4 to 2.
And almost all of them went the distance. For the most
yeah,
part.
so I had 8 matches that went 5 minutes.
Yeah, think about that next time you're tired at practice.
Yeah.
Think about that. Anyways, I'm sorry.
I had just come back from Japan, so I was in pretty good shape.
Sure.
All right, so,
and then go eat dinner and come back and do it again against the toughest guy that just beat you.
Yeah.
Maybe don't eat too much dinner.
Yeah. So I asked my coach, "Well, what should I do? And how do I beat this guy?" And he says, "Don't do Ouchigari." He goes, "I know that." I know that. So we go and we fight, and we're scoring on each other. I'm throwing instead of Ouchigari, I did Kouchigari. So I knocked him on Kouchigari. Oh, look at this! I threw him. He gets back up and he's mad. Man, he does something. He knocks me down. He gets a Koka. I get a Koka. He gets a Yuko. I get a Yuko, and we're going back and forth for 7 minutes. We're
so nervous.
fighting. We're fighting, man. We're fighting, and we're going, and being exhausted. By 5 minutes, I'm like, oh my God, this thing, when is this thing ever going to end? I'm looking across the mat, and this guy seems to be getting stronger and stronger and more pissed off. I could see it in his eyes, like, and he's like ready to kill me. I was like, oh my God, this guy, how's he doing this? So we're going, and we're knocking each other down, brawling, just fighting. And finally, I mean, I was up, I was ahead. I don't remember what the score was, but I was ahead. The beanbag finally comes in, the bell rings, and I just collapse. I collapsed. I was exhausted. The referee kind of picked me up and carried me to the side over there. And we bow out, and I won my match. And for me, that was the Olympics.
Biggest moment
That was my Olympics, because that was it was in Moscow Olympics.
Huh.
So we had to fight I was fighting the Russian team,
Right.
and that may have kicked him off the team, though.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know if he was actually.
No, I can almost guarantee you changed his life.
His family's never seen again.
But the beauty part of that was after for the awards ceremony. I mean, I would come off the mat, and the whole U.S. team is there. They're hugging me, carrying me, because I couldn't walk anymore. They're carrying me off the mat. And then, they bring the awards podium out there, and we come out there, and they present us with our medals and our judo gi and things, and they start playing the national anthem. So the American team is all standing there. We're singing the national anthem, proud, and up there singing. The whole Russian delegate walked out of the room. And the poor guy was standing right next to me. I go, "Oh, sorry, guy." I felt bad for him. Brutal. But yeah, so they walked out. But we were just singing proud. And I'd see people, on awards podiums before, and you see them crying, and I just like, okay, I don't understand that. Why are you crying? You just won. Why are you crying? My tears were flowing. At that moment, it hit me. It was just so emotional.
Right, the culmination of all the hard work.
Yep,
all the hard work.
And the tears were just flowing. I was like, wow, this is why. This is why. So for me, that was my big moment. And yeah.
But you had a second shot at the Olympics,
Yeah,
did you not? Didn't you have a second shot the next 4 years?
I did. So I kept continuing my training, going back to Japan again, which I thought
Because that was clearly the winning formula, right?
Well, when I left Japan, I said, I'm never coming back.
How many times have you been back?
Yeah, well, quite a few. But when you get away from some things, you forget the bad parts. You only remember the good parts.
That's right.
So every time a big tournament would come up, I went back to Japan to train. The next year, I got invited to go to the World Championships. I was the number one. We had the World Championship trials in Colorado Springs, but right before that, I went back to Japan and I trained for 3 weeks. I think I trained for 3 months. 3 months and trained, getting ready for the trials, and I won. I won the World Championship trials. So I made the World Championships in 1981, and it was back in Holland.
Nice.
So it was kind of nice. And I didn't do. I mean, I went 3 or 4 rounds in the World Championships. I think I made it to like the best 8 or something like that. But it was tough. It was eye opener. That was even a bigger stage. I thought the Dutch Open was a big stage. This was huge. Everybody in Europe knows judo. Everybody. 2 mats in the middle of this huge coliseum. It seemed huge at the time, but for them it was probably like a normal stadium for them. But for us, it was like, holy smokes, And I felt so small walking on the mat. I mean, I felt so small. Like it was huge. It was just overwhelming. But once you start fighting, you forget about everything. You just forget everything and just fight. But that was another great experience. But I kept training. I stayed in the top 3 or 4 in the country. So come 1984 comes around, try out for the Los Angeles Olympics. And but 2 years before, in 1982, I switched weight classes. I couldn't keep my weight down at 132 pounds. So I decided I'm going to go up to 143 pounds. So I moved up. And I should have did it right after 80 and spent those 4 years preparing, but I did it only 2 years. So back then you had to accumulate points to be ranked. Okay, so I started accumulating points 2 years later than everyone else. But I did earn enough points to make it to the Olympic trials. The top 5 got to go to the Olympic trials, but I was fighting at the heavyweight class. And I knew the only way going in, because of the point structure, I was the number 5 going in. And the only way I was going to be able to make the Olympic team is if I won. I had to win the Olympic trials, and everybody else had to finish in the exact opposite order. So the number 1 guy had to finish 5, number 2 had to finish 4, and so on. So I figured, well, it's still a shot. Sure. I got a shot. So I did it. I fought, and I beat everybody. I went back to Japan again, too, by the way, before that. I did my 3 weeks of training.
Consistency is key.
Yeah. Went back, did my training in Japan, and then came back preparing for the Olympic trials in 1984. And I won my first match. Whoa. Won my second match. Won my third match. I won my fourth match. I beat everybody. And it almost worked out perfect. Where I finished number 1, the only difference was the number 2 guy didn't finish where he was supposed to finish. So Craig Anna, he's my good friend too. He ended up taking second place, and he ended up with 2 points more than I did. Even after the points from the Olympic trials, he ended up 2 points ahead of me in the standings. He got to make it to the Olympics. I got to be alternate. So even though I won the trials, he got to go. And there was another weight class, the 172-pound weight class was the same thing. The guy that won the tournament, the trials, was Nicky Oneska. He ended up number 2. I think Brett Barron had more points, so he got to go to the Olympics. Since that time, they changed the rules right after that. We can't have that. So we can't change it for this Olympics.
Thank you for
next Olympics.
Thank you for being the proving ground.
Yeah,
You picked that nicely.
Yeah. So the next trials they had, if the number 1 player wasn't the winner, the winner and the number 1 points player will fight off the next day, and then the winner of that gets to be an Olympic team.
Yeah. If I could say it for it, didn't you say you had his number? Didn't you have you would have beat him? Or
Craig Anna, I had good luck against Craig Anna, and I fought him quite a number of times, and I've had a better record against him. There were other guys that were, and it was kind of funny because there were a lot of lefties in our weight class at that time, and I fought righties better. And some of the other guys, Joe Marshall, for example, was a righty. He fought lefties better. Okay, and so he would beat the lefties, and I would beat the righties. Right. So it was always a matter of the draw. What side of the draw you're on.
Styles make fights.
It makes a difference. Yeah, it makes a difference. So, but for that particular day though, I was able to beat everybody, and I felt good. And but things happen. You know, it doesn't always work out the way you want it to.
But you're still a highly active competitor. And thing I'd like to talk about is you are one of the top competitors for. I didn't know that judo had kata.
You didn't know that judo had kata, or you didn't know judo had kata competition?
Both. I didn't know either. I didn't know that was a thing. And then at first I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be completely honest. At first I was like, ugh, I don't want to learn kata. I do not. And then I saw judo kata, and I'm like, oh.
Pretty cool, actually.
It's pretty cool. Not only is it pretty cool, but I think, and then I think we think of kata and we picture the taekwondo, not to throw taekwondo under the bus.
Karate, taekwondo,
but
that sort of thing.
Which it doesn't look super realistic when it comes to like a self-defense standpoint, right? But boxers shadow box.
Right.
And we drill in jiu-jitsu. What is nothing but kata but an organized drill, right?
We should probably actually explain there is a pretty big difference between your typical karate kata, which I think is what most people think of when they hear the word.
Kata,
of
right.
course, yeah, kata doesn't necessarily mean that, you know.
Right.
But judo, by necessity, pretty much requires two people. So when you're, and I actually am not a guy who really learned the kata. I've studied a bit, but it wasn't mandatory in my school. It's a two-man practice. So your tori and your uke both have important parts to play in making the kata look amazing. And I've unfortunately been witness to ones where it's like, oh, one person here is excellent, and the other one is maybe a last-minute replacement.
Right? Yeah. So what got you into was kata always a part of it, or is it something you started later?
Well, no. Kata was always a requirement for promotions. And back when I was a competitor, I didn't like doing kata. It was something you had to do to get your promotion. So we did it for promotion, and then we didn't do it again until the sensei told us we had to practice it again for promotion. Later on, when I opened Tohkon Judo Academy back in 1991, and I was still doing kata, but Sensei Eiko Shepard from St. Louis, she was like the kata guru in the world. Everybody knows Sensei Eiko in the world. She's just known for her kata knowledge, and she goes around and teaches kata. She taught me kata, and I would attend kata clinics, supporting her in the kata clinics. She came to my grand opening. We've been friends for a long, long time, and to support the dojo. And she told me, you have a dojo now? You have to teach kata. You need to have a kata clinic every year. And I'm like, and she's the kind of sensei that you can't say no to. Very powerful person. So I says, yes, sensei. Yes, sensei. So she came over. She came down every year. She came up from St. Louis, and she had a hold of Friday, Saturday, Sunday kata clinic with us, and teach us kata. So since 91, I got much more serious about it back then. In 91, I didn't compete with it at the national level or anything, but some of my other members of the Tohkon did. But I was still more interested in the Shiai competition. But I did the kata, and I was teaching the kata. I was learning the kata, and I can't remember exactly what year it was when I finally decided to jump in there and just start doing it. And that was another humbling experience. It's like, well, this looks kind of easy, it is, but there's so much form to that and precision, and it's very, very difficult. And that was learning at a local level and a national level to see what it was like to learn the kata at that level, and see how besides just remembering the order of the techniques, I mean, you have to know every point, every position, and how to execute properly. Both tori and uke have to work together. Then I went to the worlds and I saw it at a world level, and I was blown away that besides doing all that right, you have to show power and speed and accuracy and precision. I mean, with a lot of energy behind it. And it wasn't just going through the motions. And when I saw that, I was like very, very impressed. At the international level, kata is strong. I mean, Goshin Jitsu and Kimono kata are self-defense katas. When they're performing it, I mean, they are performing it like they're going to hit you, and that strike is like within like a half inch of your face, and it has so much speed and so much power that their hands are shaking when it comes to your face. And you either move your head, or if they slip that half inch, you're going to get a broken nose. It's simple as that. But to see that, and then see him apply the arm bars and do those moves with that much power and precision, it was exciting. It just turned my whole world around about kata, to see it at that level.
Do you think it, I assume it helped you feel it helped your Shiai and your run duty?
It actually does. It helps, especially Nagano kata, because especially for, any judo player, learning judo, beginners, we teach it backwards. We don't teach kata in the beginning. We wait till you get older and we require it for black belt level. It's kind of backwards. Young kids should learn how to do kata because it teaches you kuzushi, tsukuri, kake, breaking off balance, positioning, and executing the throw, both left side and right side. And it teaches you hand techniques, hip techniques, leg techniques, back sacrifice, and side sacrifice. every throw. That covers almost every throw you do, right? So, but we don't teach it that way. But it should. We should. And but it's a different. There aren't too many people that do Shiai competition and kata competition, just because Shiai players, myself included at the time, so I don't want to do that. I'm focused on kata or Shiai, I should say. And it's true, if you're competing at the world class level or international level, you can't. You can only do Shiai.
Sure.
It's just, and I didn't do kata until I was much older and playing around in a masters. That's a little bit different.
Yeah. So I've got two questions there for you. So one, we should probably break down what some of the katas are, because we're Nagi no kata doesn't mean anything to the majority of our listening audience probably. Sure. But in addition to that, what's your best one?
So I like, and I was competing in mainly Goshin Jitsu, which is the self-defense kata. And it's hand-to-hand self-defense, but it also has self-defense against some punches and strikes and kicks, but also with weapons, with a stick, a knife, and a gun.
And this was, if I recall, one of the latter kata that was added to the Tohkon curriculum.
Correct. The original self-defense kata was Kime no kata, right? So Goshin Jitsu is a later form.
Kime is more appropriate for sword and
knife. Right. Yeah, and plus the hand attacks and
of course,
yes. But I prefer the Goshin Jitsu. I'm not sure why. I got attracted to that. I saw maybe it was a gun. I'm not sure what. I did Kime no kata. I know I had to learn Kime no kata for my promotion to Yondan. But then when I learned Goshin Jitsu, I like these techniques better. They seem to be more effective at that time when I was learning it. It seemed to make more sense and it fit me better. So I just took a liking to that. So when I started practicing for deciding what kata to do on national level, I was doing all the katas. I was doing Nagi no kata, the throwing katas, Katame no kata, which is a mat work, grappling kata, and I was doing Judo kata, which is the gentle kata, It's actually a self-defense kata, but it's gentle and it's done in slow motion.
And if I can jump in here, so Nagi no kata probably looks like what most people think judo looks like.
Correct.
Or at least the stand-up portion, the tachiwaza. Katame no kata, katame looks like it is almost identifiable to a lot of our listening on it as the jiu-jitsu techniques, the newaza portion, arm bars, pins, things of that nature in there. Kime no kata is like, it looks ancient. I believe the story is
original self-defense kata.
Right, original self-defense kata. Some of the movements are actually derived from older jiu-jitsu techniques that would be more appropriately practiced in armor against an opponent wielding a sword, or if you're about to be ambushed in a tea house or something of that nature. Then Goshin Jitsu. Now we're into techniques that, for a Brazilian jiu-jitsu audience, these are very similar to the self-defense techniques that we would learn in typical Brazilian jiu-jitsu classes. Judo kata is so hard to explain without seeing it. But
it's described as the gentle kata.
Yes.
But it is a self-defense kata, and it's performed in slow motion. And to do it correctly, it takes a lot of energy, and it's very difficult. It is very difficult because you are showing attack and counterattack, and you're showing control and regaining control, but in a soft, fluid motion. And you're picking people up as if you're going to throw them, but in slow motion.
Right.
And they tap, and you put them down in slow motion, which is very hard to do. It's very hard to do.
Yeah, go ahead and try to do a judo throw or any wrestling technique where you do it slow, hold them in the air for a while, turn them over, put them down lightly. It's so hard to do.
You have to have total control.
Right.
Total control.
And of course, they're not resisting you, but you still have to maintain full control of their balance and weight throughout it. Yeah. Like I said, it's we can't do it justice. Like this one is probably worth. Well, they're all probably worth looking up on YouTube or something, just if you're unfamiliar with it. But yeah, Juno
maybe we'll find a cool link of it
and throw it up in the show notes. Yeah, I'll get that to Zito to put on the page.
Would you have a problem nerding out on some martial arts stuff? Is that an issue for you, Googling?
Yeah, no,
okay.
Not appropriate at all.
For any of you that know Javier whatsoever, that is his thing.
So that's just to give like kind of an overview of what those are all like. And like I said, probably can't do them all justice without.
Yeah, like I said, the first time
actually seeing
I even heard the word, I was upset. Then I saw it, and I'm like, oh, it's really. And like I think I first saw Nagano Kata at Tohkon, and I'm like, it's just drilling for the most part. I mean, we drill in jiu-jitsu. We don't call it kata, but I'm like. What's the difference between drilling and kata, except you're trying to be like even maybe a little more refined and slower with it, maybe.
Right. Well, I mean, to be fair, the original meaning of kata is not just like a static form,
right?
And I think that's what and granted, the judo katas are static in terms of like there's a set, beginning to end, but yeah, like. Some people will use the term kata simply to mean the practice of the form, similar to how we might use ukemi, for example, is technically a type of kata practice in and of itself. Correct? You are practicing the form of the entries.
Yes,
but we've certainly drifted away from that actual meaning of it. When you say kata, people are thinking the prearranged form.
Yes, it's a formal demonstration.
Randori is actually formally known as Randori no kata, correct?
Yes. And Nagi no kata and Katame no kata are actually, and Juno kata are known as the Randori no katas combined.
Right.
Yep.
The forms of sparring, essentially.
I think Newaza would, jiu-jitsu guys and gals would benefit from some kind of, at least maybe at the minimum, maybe at the beginning levels of, why is everybody getting out of your armbar? Why are you slipping? Just doing a more of a. We don't have a test. We don't have a method of testing either. Like how else? I mean, that's one of the things.
Some of us do.
I should correct myself. Your academy. Your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Academy does the testing.
Different affiliations do that, and it's funny because like when I explain to my students and teammates at LCCT that don't have any experience outside of our affiliation, I'm like, yeah, no, not everyone does tests. They look at me like, well, how do they know what belt they are? and then I explain it to people who are out of the affiliation, and they're like, wait, why do you have a test?
Yeah, when they have a test, don't you just know that they're tapping all the blues, so now you get a purple?
Right. Don't you just go win a championship, or your coach says, hey, you're good enough here?
Yeah.
or we'll have a... So yeah, like it's funny, like the difference is there.
Yeah, you do very formal testing. As a matter of fact, when I still have... the first pages that you gave me of the test, you have it all laid out as to what ranks you have. You go down the bar graph as to what techniques you have, and I went home and I laminated them at work, and I still have them laminated. So I've been studying for what I'm actually going to test for my orange belt on Wednesday.
Congratulations, man! That's awesome.
And I started testing for it the day after I got my yellow, and I'm going to do the same with the green. I mean, on Wednesday, I plan on passing my orange belt test, and I'm going to start studying. I've actually...
He's been working very hard. So,
well, he's also probably confused at least half the listening audience, probably more like 80%, because in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, of course, orange belt is a rank reserved for children.
It is.
And Jason, while a man-child...
definitely while a child in action and thinking most of the time too. Unfortunately, the birth certificate says 40.
So how does the rank structure in judo work? And I know obviously it works differently in different parts of the world and with certain different organizations.
Right. So for kids, there are more ranks for kids coming up.
They need that motivation.
As in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yes, of course. Yeah, we go from white belt to yellow, yellow to orange, orange to green, green to blue, blue to purple, and then brown belt. And then 3 levels of brown belt, and then black belt. But at our dojo, because kids start pretty young, we also add on white 1, 2, and 3, yellow 1, 2, and 3, and so every 6 months or year they're getting a promotion.
Right, keeps them motivated.
Just keep motivated, keep them interested, and give them something excited about. And we don't charge for promotions at my dojo. People say I'm crazy, but this is part of our club. That's been our tradition when we started a club. Seniors a little bit different. It's similar, but not. We go from white to yellow, orange, green. Then from green, we go straight to brown belt. And then brown belt, there's 3 levels of brown belt.
Right.
And then shodan, black belt.
Right.
So, yeah, we don't have the in-between ranks. But we thought it is still important to go have something between white and brown belt. just so you know where your students stand, or when new students come in, that they know where they stand.
Right.
Yeah. So they don't go out there and do something crazy or grab the wrong person to work out with, and something happens.
And for the record, the early judo belting system was white, brown, black, and it was like that for a long time. But the colored belts were introduced, if I recall, once judo left Japan and started reaching out into Europe and whatnot.
I believe so. And in fact, in Japan, they still go from white belt to black belt. Yeah. Black belt. They don't have brown belt.
I just
read
a
to black.
Great biography on Dr. Kano, creator of judo, and how he learned the different styles of jiu-jitsu, and created judo and became the physical education guru of Japan, and it was on a bunch of his students, and focused a few little chapters on some of his students and everything. And there would be times when they would talk about somebody from another village who practiced, and they would show up, and Dr. Kano would go, "You are not a fifth dan." "Yeah, you are, because today you are." And they would walk in and they would have, like, maybe they would only have the first dan or something. So don't quote me on exact details in this, but if you read the book, there was a couple different stories of him giving people rank.
Right.
Walking in, and he was like, what are you kidding me? You're a fourth dan. What are you doing with the first dan ranking?
Right. Things were definitely different.
Right. Well, when you're Dr. Kano, so how much of the history did you like? When did you start studying, going from just knowing judo as a technique to looking into? Because you're very traditional with your judo. Like we
I was going to bring that up. Actually,
we bow in and out to a picture of which jiu-jitsu schools will have a picture. At Carlson Gracie headquarters, we have a huge right beside, and no bigger or smaller. It's Dr. Kano, Mitsuyo Maeda, Carlson Senior, Carlson Junior, right down the line. So we have Junior has my instructor at Jiu-Jitsu, he has a black belt in judo, and he fought for the Brazilian judo team. He has a massive love for judo. At what point did you go, okay, I need to know more than just the sport aspect of this, and start making it more of a traditional, not just a sport club where you throw people, but a martial arts academy?
Well, I grew up that way. I was taught that way, and I don't know anything different. I don't know anything different. My sensei, when he started the dojo,
So who was your sensei, sir?
Mr. Takayuki Yoshinaga. And he was from Japan. And the Midwest Buddhist Temple brought him over to start the judo program as part of the cultural program. But he was very traditional Japanese judo. And, he had a picture of Sensei Kano. He had the, Japanese flag, and actually he had the Kokushikan University flag and American flag. And, we lined up every class. We bowed, and that's what I grew up doing. And most of the other dojos that we actually visited, they did the same thing. And then, of course, when I went back to Japan, it's exactly what they did. So I don't know any other different way. I don't know any other way of how to run a class, or, since then I've been to other clubs and I've seen they do different things, which, that's fine. If that's what they like, that's their deal. I just decided that this is what I'm used to. This is what I grew up. This is what I know. And we'll keep the tradition.
I think it's important.
Part of it.
And I think that there's one thing that with martial arts becoming such a business and really sport related and all this stuff, I really, let's be honest here, if you worked out with some wrestlers back in your day at all, not all of them are known for being super caring about their uke or about your feelings or being respectful.
Your feelings still don't matter to me.
Yeah. So all of my wrestler friends out there that I have, several of you out there, you all have been jerks to me at one time.
No, it's definitely a different experience. And I've been to the club that I train at is actually significantly less traditional. Our symbol is
a shamrock.
Yeah, it's a shamrock because some Irish brothers own the club. But yeah, so like certain aspects of the tradition are less important at different clubs. Some, of course, if I'm speaking from my experience, and not like I've been around to too many clubs in America in the grand scheme of things. I've been to way more jiu-jitsu clubs actually, but my impression is like one of the traditions that tends to be kept is most schools will have the small picture shrine type setup with a picture of Kano that you bow to. Bow to sensei at the beginning of class, things of that nature. But in my experience, like there's actually way more bowing in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Like you bow, a lot of schools, you bow onto the mats, you bow when you leave the mats, you bow at the beginning of class, you bow at the end of the class.
You have us bow before we touch our uke almost every
Before
single
red
time.
door.
For sure, for sure. That is probably. I mean, judo is about respect and discipline, but that's just showing respect to your partner.
Right.
You know, you're bowing, you're saying, "Please work out with me," and when you're done, you fix your gi. And I'm on the kids on this all the time. It says, fix your gi properly, make sure it's nice and neat. When you bow, look at your partner in the eye, then you bow, because that's proper etiquette. Right. And to me, that's judo. That's part of judo. You have to have proper etiquette. You have to show proper respect to your partner, to your dojo, to your senseis. Okay, and that's just the way I grew up, and I think that's important, and that's traditional judo, and I think a lot of kids can benefit from that.
Absolutely,
just having that discipline and showing that respect.
That was one thing I learned very quickly was Doug and I got along very well immediately, and I think he saw that I try my utmost at all times to be respectful, especially while on the mat. But the first time that I did the jiu-jitsu thing, which was during sparring, during round duty, my belt fell off. What do you do in Brazilian jiu-jitsu? You throw that thing aside. If you stop and tie your belt, you literally get made fun of. Like the guy's like, oh, come on. In judo, the first time I threw my belt to the side and I heard you very sternly suggest that I put my belt on as quickly as humanly possible. I was like, oh, it's different here. Okay. But I get it. When I look around a jiu-jitsu school and I see 6-7 belts untied during everything, I'm like, you need to either learn how to tie your belt a little tighter, or it just looks really sloppy. It looks bad.
Well, ignoring the aesthetic aspect of it for a second here, what I've always found funny, especially so, I have a very weird meandering path to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, as we've discussed in the past, but specifically to gi Jiu-Jitsu was. I tie a very tight knot in my judo belt, and it very rarely falls off. When you're competing in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, they will let the action go for a little bit, when that belt comes off. But when there's an appropriate time to break it, you're tying that back up again and getting back to it. And in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, we use that as a grip a lot more than what we're currently allowed to in judo.
That's a good point.
Formal competition. And I find it really crazy. I mean, I've even been advised by people. They're like, "Listen, you don't want to tie that too tight because your opponent's going to grab that and it's not going to come off."
Right.
Well,
That's a good point.
Coming from like my background in Samba and whatnot, it loops through the jacket. It's a valid handhold. It better not go anywhere because you could be taking away the grips that your opponent wants to use. So yeah, like the approach to it is really weird and different in that, like in judo, typically there's not much belt grabbing anymore, but absolutely, that belt needs to be firmly in place, and we're going to call a break to the action to make sure that it's there.
Exactly right.
Not just for appearances, but because it should be there. That's the uniform. And again, belt grips are a thing that I can use. Jiu-Jitsu, 100%. There's no limitations on gripping that belt at all. There's no time restrictions. You can grab it any way you want, basically, except even by the ends.
As long as I think
you could do basically anything with it except choke the guy with it.
Yeah, I know, right? It's kind of funny. You're like, has anybody ever tried that? Just untie it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. There's a reason it's in the handbook. It's not being legal because somebody's definitely done it. But yeah, and when it falls off, everyone's like, oh, just go without it. But now I can't belt grip him anymore.
Don't make your problems my problems.
Yeah. So yeah, I've always found that sort of a weird dichotomy.
It does sound funny, doesn't it? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But for judo, it's from my perspective, besides being a rule in judo competition,
of course.
you have to have. But you earned that belt, right? You earned that rank, whatever rank you have, you earned it. Why would you want to throw it on the floor? I earned it. That's my belt. I earned it. I want to show respect to my belt. It's my belt. I want to show respect for that belt because I earned it. I worked hard for it. I deserved it, and I earned it. I want to show respect for it, and I'm going to put it back on when it comes off. And I think everyone should do the same.
Right.
I don't like people throwing their belt on the side. I'll pick it up, say, hey, dust it off for them. Hey, you earned this belt. Put it back on.
Right.
So I think it's just proper etiquette. And me, our dojo, we're pretty strict on that. And you know that. So, and I think the parents appreciate that when they bring their kids. That at least they tell me that when they come in and bring their kids. I tell them we're very traditional. We're very Japanese judo, very traditional, and I'm very strict. and I'm the mean sensei on the mat. And
we were discussing
very-
your kids class. Whereas
Yes.
I teach a small group of kids where it's 6 to 10 kids on Saturdays and Sundays, and it's only myself on a small little matted area. And then I've been teaching kids for a while. I think I started when I was a purple belt. So I've been doing it for a while, and I was an education major in college, and I really felt a pull to do this. And every single practice, I can have the parents send me texts and say, "You did a great job," and I still feel like I did everything wrong. And then, like I yelled too much, I didn't yell enough, and all this stuff. And then when I talk to you, and I'm like, I sound like I'm the nice guy. It sounds to me like you don't let them get it. You don't give them an inch.
I am strict, It's on the mat. Well, especially when you have a big class. And a lot of little kids and a lot of big kids, it can turn into
Chaos.
very quickly. Very quickly.
And you said you'll have around give or take 30 to 40 kids and 4 instructors.
Yeah, so Saturday was bad. We were outnumbered, so
My God.
I had to make sure they know their limits. I don't. If they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, they're not messing around. That's okay.
Sure.
But then when you start getting a little out of line and bullying and doing dangerous things, then I will stop it immediately, and bring it back. And last Saturday got a little bit out of hand with some of the kids, and so they learned. They ended up doing 50 push-ups, and when they finished that, the whole class had to do 50 squats, and when they finished that, then they had to do 50 sit-ups. And then I had to lecture them and tell them why they had to do that, and then everyone was quiet after that.
Right. Lesson learned.
Lesson learned, and they won't do it
so
again.
Important.
Right.
So important.
Yep.
So above and beyond that, though, like obviously there's judo traditions and some of the other elements that are really strongly tied to Japanese culture. And one of the interesting things I know you guys do, there's a lot of additional cultural elements to the club. So let's get into some of that.
Yeah, you do a couple ceremonies that. Unfortunately, as much as I love what I do for a living, it takes up quite a bit of my time. You've done you do a few ceremonies that I just would love to be a part of, and I haven't done it yet. One is what is the rice pounding ceremony?
Okay, so we try to keep a lot of the Japanese culture involved in our dojo and our community. We try to keep a community atmosphere in the dojo. Not just judo is important, and the things we do on the mat and tournaments are important, but also the social things we do. We like to intertwine that with our practice in our club. So every New Year's we have our traditional Japanese Kagami Biraki, beginning of the year New Year's celebration, and part of that is in the morning we do this rice pounding ceremony we call mochitsuki, where we cook sweet rice, steamed sweet rice, and this is the way they used to make mochi rice patties, the old-fashioned way. Okay, you get a big stone, they call it usu. It's a big stone bowl. They take the steamed rice, they put it in this bowl, and they take these wooden mallets, and you smash it up till it gets to be kind of doughy, a lumpy dough. And then once it gets to a certain texture, then 4 people stand around this this stone usu with their wooden mallets, and they'll take turns pounding it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, until it gets to be a very creamy dough, smooth, silky smooth dough. And it's sweet rice, so it's got a little bit of sweetness to it, not much. But then we take to scoop it out of the bowl, this big glob of dough, and put it on a table layered with cornstarch, and then the people on the table start pinching it off into smaller bite-sized mochi patties. And we take those and we fill it up. Some we fill with sweet beans, some we fill with fruit and sweet beans, and we're American, so we put candy in and chocolate in. Of course, I know people in Japan are probably rolling over. They can't be doing that.
Next thing you know, we're stuffing a cheeseburger inside.
Ooh. But everybody gets to try it and eat it, and they help make the mochi. They can help pound it. They can help make the little patties and fill it, and we donate the rice, and everyone can eat it and taste it. It really doesn't taste like much until you add something to it. Then it tastes better. But eating mochi by itself is pretty bland. But
so were you the one that started that, or was that already implemented when you joined the? Because what we need to make clear is Tohkon is not inside of its own building. It's actually you.
We are part of the Japanese American Service Committee building. They had a section in the building that they let us use, and so since 1991. But we brought that tradition to JSC because I did that. In fact, back when I was at the Midwest temple, we called it NBC Judo Club, my first judo club. They were affiliated with the Midwest Buddhist Church. And the church did this, Mochitsuki. In fact, they usually do it like right around this time of year, the third weekend in January. And they make the rice at that time, the mochi. They pound the rice before the New Year ends. And when the traditional Kagami Biraki is after New Year's, supposed to be the first practice of the year, that's when you eat the rice. You serve the rice and you eat it. But because of the holidays and everyone's so busy, it's just very difficult to do that. And plus, all the churches, the Japanese churches, they do the same thing. So it's kind of difficult. We're borrowing their equipment, so we can't. We're borrowing the rice pounding equipment, so they're using it. So we said, look, I tell you what, we'll just do it later. So we kind of put in a one day affair. So we do this rice pounding. And then that's the morning session. In the afternoon session, when I first started Tohkon, one of my senseis from back in the day, Reverend Oki sensei, he's a Tenrikyo minister. And he's a good friend of my family. And when we started Tohkon, he came over and he did a Tenrikyo blessing of the dojo. It's a purification ceremony. They call it Ohari ceremony, Oharai ceremony, which is cleansing of the dojo. And then he gives a sermon, a Japanese prayer for us, and he says in Japanese and blesses the dojo and wishes us luck for the new year. And we started first time when we started the dojo, he performed it for us, and it kept us safe. It kept us successful. So we kept doing it every year as part of our tradition, even though none of us are Tenrikyo, but Sensei Oki was, and he was like our spiritual advisor. So it was successful. So we decided, don't change something that's working.
Right. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Once again,
we've been doing
consistency.
Consistency. You got to do it, right? So we've been doing that ever since we started the dojo. We just expanded it and opened it up to the Japanese community and make it more of a community effort. And we also added on, we do a demonstration after the blessing of the dojo. I have the kids perform for the parents so they can see what they're doing. And traditionally, in the Kagami Biraki ceremonies in Japan, they would have kata demonstrations.
Okay.
Yeah, they would have different katas, and usually, they'll have like some Olympians or high-ranking senseis perform the kata for all the head. Right. At the Kodokan, all the head people over there, and it's a big ceremony, and it's an honor to be asked to perform for them. I'm sure it's nerve-wracking as heck.
Absolutely, no pressure. No pressure.
Imagine.
But so we changed a little bit. We don't do the kata, which I think we should bring that back. But we do the judo demonstration, and since we also had an Aikido club practicing with us, I let them do a demonstration, and then I have the Japanese drummers, my taiko drummers, come in and perform for us too. That was another thing we did at Tohkon from the very beginning. The friends of the family play taiko, and so they performed for us for a grand opening, and everybody enjoyed it. So every year we keep them in. Consistency.
Man, I love taiko drum.
It's so cool. It's you watch a video of it and you don't get it. Then I don't remember which tournament I did. I think it was one of the first ones where I competed under the Tohkon flag, and I walk in and I think I was up on a balcony looking over at the gymnasium, and the drums started, and I just felt it in my chest, and I'm like, I'm ready to go to war. Somebody needs a horse. Somebody needs a horse right now. I need to get on a horse. I don't know how to ride one, but I need a horse and a sword
or perhaps a rowing machine.
Yeah, sure. So I need something right now. They're like, oh, you got to go compete judo. I'm like, yeah, but they're doing that too. I don't know. I need a sword and a horse.
Yeah, so we try to keep some Japanese culture included in our program.
So are the drummers local? Do you bring them in?
They're local.
Okay.
They're local.
That's super cool.
Yep. And so that we started it from the beginning, and everyone enjoys it. Yeah, keep you going. And I think it's good for the kids to see that too.
Absolutely.
See some Japanese culture. And after that, when it's all done, we take a group picture, and then we go have potluck lunch. Everybody brings some food, and we go to the other side.
Lunch.
And have our big gathering. So try to keep it social.
Is there? Do you have any other? Off the top of my head, I'm not remembering any other ceremonies you have.
That's our main cultural ceremony, is that Kagami Biraki. But we do other social events like our annual picnic for the whole community. But again, we've opened it up with the Japanese community too. So but it's a picnic. It's just a picnic. Yeah.
So your father was born in America, right?
It was.
Yeah.
It was. Yep. My grandparents came over from
Okay.
Japan. Yeah,
Okay.
So I'm a third generation.
And so that's really, I can't imagine. Like I remember asking my dad, "Hey, Dad, where's our family from?" And he just went, I grew up in Northwest Ohio, and I'll never forget. He was on the couch. Grandpa lived in Kentucky. I'm like, anything else? He goes, I don't know. And he rolls over. I'm like, but to have like actually some roots and like
cultural
and
elements,
especially a culture like Japan,
But that's kind of funny because when I went to Japan, before I went to Japan, I always felt the same way. Oh man, I'm Japanese. I'm Japanese. My roots are from Japan. I'm Japanese. I went to Japan, and I spent most of my time there telling everybody, I'm not Japanese. I'm American. I'm American. For those of you that, for a couple of reasons. One, I look Japanese. So when I go there, they're going to think I'm Japanese.
Right.
But I know I'm not Japanese, and I don't know the culture well enough because it's a very formal culture, and you have to show a lot of respect just in your daily life. And I'm a dumb American. I don't know all the cultures. I don't want to do something stupid and offend somebody, and they're going to look at me like, "You're Japanese. You should know better than that." And it would really be offensive if I did something, right? Versus if an American did it, they would say, "Oh yeah, well he doesn't know better. Yeah, he doesn't know better, right?" But you look Japanese. You're supposed to know this. So I was very aware of the fact that I'm American. And I even kept my hair long for the first
walking
month.
around in an American flag all day.
I wanted to make
Skinner
sure
T-shirt.
all the people at Tohkon University knew I was American. I kept my long hair, and so I think it was during the summer when we came back for that second camp. After that camp, I cut my hair. I got the buzz cut, man. I got tired of the long hair, and I got to know everybody a little bit better, and I started to get a little more respect. So then I figured, okay, I'm safe now.
Right.
I earned a little more respect. So then I got my hair cut short, and I'm standing there during practice. And Moriwaki Sensei, my hero, the guy who taught me Yoko Tomoe, I'm standing right in front of him, and he's looking around. He's telling the other students, "Where's Tono? Tono, where's he?" I'm standing right in front of him, and they kind of point to me, and he goes, "Oh."
Didn't you tell me that a couple people thought that you were, how would you say, special needs because you weren't talking well? They're like, why is this guy not talking to me?
I got my hair cut, right? And I'm walking on the trains in Japan, in Tokyo. I'm at the train station, and I'm waiting for the train. A little old lady comes up to me, and she starts, blah, 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 Japanese, talk to me Japanese. I can't speak Japanese, right? I can say words. Right. But she's going over, and she's asking me for directions or something. I'm not even sure what it was, but I told her, "Sumimasen, wakarimasen." And she looks at me and says, I'm American. Watashi wa American desu. She looks at me, says, I can't speak Japanese. Nihongo dekinai. And it's a rude Japanese stuff. I can't speak Japanese. And she's walking away, turning her head, looking back at me, like, what? Like, what is wrong with you?
She's like the youth today.
Yeah. That's public education, man. All I could do is laugh. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. That's definitely a rough one. Now, speaking of Japanese, the name Tohkon, it has some meaning.
It does.
So
Tohkon means fighting spirit. Fighting spirit. Like the samurais, never give up, never say die attitude. And when we were trying to decide a name for the dojo, we're bantering back and forth, and people were telling me, well, you should name it Tono Dojo. And I was like, I don't want to have my name on the dojo. No, I don't want my name on the dojo. This is, I didn't feel comfortable with that. So we're going round and round and round. And all of a sudden, my dad came up with this sake cup, a ceremonial sake cup. And on the bottom of it was the kanji for Tohkon. And I had gotten it at one of the tournaments I went to in Japan. I think it was the Shoriki tournament. And they gave us, gifts, very traditional Japanese, gave us a nice gift. And on the bottom of the box was the explanation of what Tohkon meant. It was the Budo spirit of, the samurai spirit and never give up. And so my dad found it. After all these years, I don't even remember what it was, but he found it and he says, this would be a good name for your dojo. He says, Tohkon. I looked and I go, hey,
You're right again, Dad.
How does he know these things?
He's so wise beyond his years.
Yes. So that's how we got our name, Tohkon, fighting spirit. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yep. So
your father was a big influence on your life.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
He had an interesting story. Do you mind getting into that?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. So my dad grew up in California, I think near Bakersfield area. So during the war, Pearl Harbor, and they were all incarcerated in the relocation camps. And so they were put in camps. They had to pack up whatever they can only take, whatever they can carry. They had 24 hours to pack up whatever they can take. And the executive order 9066 came, and all the Japanese on the West Coast had to evacuate. So they were part of that group, and they packed up whatever they could pack up in the garage, put it in the car, and left the car in the garage, and whatever they can carry in their suitcases got shipped off. And my dad's family was put in Heart Mountain relocation camp. And while we're in camp, they were in camp, not me. They were in camp. They decided they're going to draft the Japanese young men of draft age. First, they put them in there and they gave them a 4F rating, meaning they're almost treason.
Okay, wow.
So they were ineligible for draft because you couldn't trust them. So now the war's going on, and they decided, well, we're going to put these young Japanese men in the war. And so now they gave them a 1A rating. Okay, so they were going to draft all the young Japanese men of the right age. So my dad was one of the guys that says no. He resisted a draft. There were two types of draft resistors. There were the no boys and the no yes boys. They were given a questionnaire to fill out. The question was, are you loyal to America and will you fight for America? And there were some of the Japanese men said, no, we're not loyal to America, and no, we will not fight for you. And they got treated like bad. They were put in prison and trials and everything, but they were pretty much sent. I don't know if they were sent back to Japan or, they have their own story. My dad was a yes, no. He says, yes, I am loyal to America because I grew up here. I'm American. I was born here. Mm-hmm. But no, I'm not going to fight for America until you restore our civil liberties. You give us back our houses and you put us back in the community and let us go to school, take us out from all these barbed wires. Right. And he fought for his rights. And he was 21 years old. And I think back of that when I was 21 years old, I could not imagine fighting back to the United States government, telling you, go, screw yourself. I'm not going to fight for you. And he stuck by his words. And I think there was a bunch of them that went to court. 300 of them, I think. I don't know the exact number. I should know. But that they got sentenced to prison and they were put in a federal penitentiary. Oh, wow. So he spent some time in a federal penitentiary. And they were in a work farm, and they were in cells with murderers and some serious felons in the jail. But they were on a work farm. And one of the funny stories about my dad's experience in jail, he didn't talk about it a lot when we were younger. And I found out all this stuff out later on, many years later. But he was a baseball player. He never did judo. My father never did judo, but he was a baseball player. So he did a lot of the during the camp. He organized the baseball leagues, and he was a pitcher, and he got them all playing baseball. And even during prison, they were
able to
play baseball and organize a baseball. Mm-hmm. But they were put on a work farm. So he made friends with some of the guys over there, and one of his friends from California, who also was put in prison, he was on the horse and buggy detail, bringing the wagon back and forth from the field to the bringing the vegetables and whatever produce back and forth, and he wore yellow pants and a purple shirt. He's a Japanese guy, same as my dad, Nisei, and my dad nicknamed him Gypsy because he had purple shirt and yellow pants, and so. Fast forward, we're back home in Chicago. He's got a family now. Every year we would get this box of fruit from somebody named Gypsy. Never met the man. Never met him. Don't know who he is. Gypsy Matsumoto. He sent us a box of fruit for every Christmas for the holidays. Wow. Okay? So now I'm like 12 years old. I'm going to my first junior national championships in Odessa, Texas. The home of the world's largest jackrabbit.
So Texas.
That's what I remember. Home of the world's largest jackrabbit. So fighting in the junior national championships, and we're walking across the lobby of the hotel. And this is my first national championships. I had no clue what was going on. I was just following my dad around. And we're walking through the lobby of the hotel. And we get to the other side, and somebody else is coming from the other side. And he goes, "Hey, Gypsy!" He calls out his friend from camp.
Wow.
They meet up in the lobby, and his son, Mickey, was with him. And Mickey is like
Both doing judo?
We were both doing judo.
Wow.
We were about the same size, and we're looking at each other, and they're talking, and
You're sizing each other up.
yeah. And Mickey and I are looking at each other. Oh man, I gotta fight him. But my dad and Gypsy Matsumoto were getting together, talking about the old days and what catching up a little bit, and then Mickey and I just kind of looking at each other. Okay, this may not turn out good. Turned out he was a year older than I was, but and he was a lot more experienced than I was.
Did you guys actually wind up hooking up then, or
We did not fight. Mickey and I did not fight that time. In fact, I didn't even see him after that. But my dad and our families reconnected.
Oh, that's awesome.
Now, fast forward again. We're in seniors now. Okay, that was like we were 12, 13 years old. And seniors started 16, 17. So now I'm on the national team, and we're traveling all over. And Mickey is also now, he's back on the national level too, and he's fighting.
wow.
And we're fighting again. Now we're fighting against each other in seniors because it's not age, it's weight.
Right.
So he's a lightweight and I'm a lightweight. So we're fighting each other. Like, 10 years later, we're fighting against each other, competing against each other. We're best of friends.
Right.
We're
Works out
fighting
well.
against each other. So we both make teams together. We go to the Austrian Open. We're both selected to go to the fight in the Austrian Open. Oh, but now I switch weight classes.
Okay.
So I'm up at 143 pounds and he's still down at 132 pounds. So we're not rivals anymore, but we're still fighting, traveling together. And I take it back. In 1980, when I won a gold medal at the Dutch Open, I was in heaven, right? I was still fighting 132 pounds.
Okay.
I win. This was like early April. And I'm on a high, right? I'm on an airplane ride back. Everyone's cheering for me. And, it was the whole team is, celebrating, the win and all. It was wonderful, right? And we get back and the nationals are like 2 or 3 weeks later. And I don't even remember where they were. And we have to fight, and I fight Mickey, and I'm coming off the win, right? Everyone's expecting me to win the nationals. I fight Mickey, and I lose.
dramatically or just barely?
He threw me.
So how long did your father have to spend in prison? He says a few years, right?
I think it was over a year.
Over a year?
And so
Okay.
I guess I think it was like 2 years. The record. I mean, the sentence was for 2 years, but then you get good behavior off, and you get some time off. But evidently, he was kind of like a bad boy, and he lost all his good days. Oh, jeez. So he was kind of like the last one to get out of prison of that group. Yeah.
So he got Nixon later pardoned him.
He did get pardoned. I think it was actually Reagan.
Was
Reagan? Or
I think from what I read, it was Nixon.
Reagan was the redress.
Okay.
Was the redress.
Okay.
Yeah. All the Japanese that were in camp.
I don't want to give
were
Reagan
from
credit for anything.
Yeah.
Anyway, but there was for anybody that cares, there's I was trying to find it real quick without looking at my phone during this. There was a PBS documentary about it.
Oh.
Yeah, it was the Heart Mountain. I believe there's a number to it. Like for some reason, the number 63 sticking out in my head. But it was rather short. But it was it showed it was not good. They were not moved into nice hotels. They were moved into like if you ever go to a campground and there is just a covered area for picnic tables. Just imagine that with 4 walls and no windows, and it was cold, and it was very, very cold.
And the walls, they weren't really finished walls.
No.
They were framed.
There was no drywall,
And there was tar paper. Tar paper tacked up with strips of wood, but the tar paper was the only thing keeping the wind out. And some of the more handier Japanese men, they would take some fine wood scraps and build up the wall on the inside to protect themselves. But I didn't understand that. Because my dad never talked about that when we were growing up. Never talked about that. But at the JSC, they had a exhibition about the relocation camps, and they showed where they all were and some of the living conditions. And someone built a sample of what the cabins look like. And I didn't know that at that time. I learned it then. I learned it.
Right. You're like, oh yeah, they put them in like as a kid. You were probably they put them in apartments or something, right?
I thought they put them in barracks, like army barracks, which was not the greatest, but not so.
Not
but then I saw what they showed. They showed me what the walls looked like. I'm like, holy crap! This is like nobody would live here.
No.
And how could they put people in something like that? And then things started to click. How serious it really was.
Sometimes our government does things that they shouldn't.
Yeah.
There was also there's a show I'm sure Tono Sensei is not aware of this show, but it's a show called Drunk History. It's rather it's rather entertaining. You're like, where are you going with this? But it's rather an entertaining show. They have comedians get drunk and tell a history story, and it's all true, but it's just way funnier because they're drunk. And then they have actors act out whatever the drunk person said, and so they're doing things like Napoleon said whatever, so it's like that, right? So they actually did a story in last season about the Heart Mountain group.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. It was really cool. I was like, and I kept joking with my
cool
wife.
and
I'm
yet
like,
hysterical.
Yeah, I know. I was like, this tragedy is hilarious.
No, I've actually, I can't remember the exact. I'm pretty sure that really awesome PBS podcast. That the name escapes me right now, but there was a podcast about that time, the internment, that I had listened to a while back, and it was pretty cool, and it was very, very eye opening. Like I'm like, oh yeah, this is very much an untaught element.
Nobody tells the story.
Not history books.
Nobody.
Right.
No, that is not going to be.
No.
Matter of fact, in Texas, they will remove that story from the history books. So what were some of the toughest to get back to competitive judo here? What were some of the absolute most brutal? You've done hundreds upon hundreds of matches. What were some of the most brutal that you can think of in your head? Matches you've had?
There were so many.
None of them easy.
Hard to pick any one out over the other.
Well, you told me one in particular. What is the story about? When by the end of the match you look like a pirate with two eyes,
that was
two eye patches.
That was in the Veterans World Championship. I know this is
recent then.
Yes.
So for some of our jiu-jitsu listeners, you are in judo. You're in seniors.
Seniors is the regular competitors that you would see fighting in the Olympics. These are the kids there from 20 to 30s. Usually some go older. Very few, but some go older. But from 30 years old and up, they call them masters or veterans now. So they have their own.
They're masters now.
Yeah, they have their own tournament, and a senior tournament, masters tournament, and it's every 5 years. Age brackets are every 5 years, and they have all the Olympic weight classes. And so from 30 through 34 is one age M1, 35 through 39 is M2, and all the way up till M8, M11.
Wow,
80 is max. 79 is the last year.
That's when I'm going to win my World Veterans Gold Medal right there.
There's the dream.
M8 World Champion.
Yeah. I mean, hey, if you can still go out and do it.
They cut you off at M11. Then if you show up, they'll give you an honorary medal. They just don't want you to go out there and hurt yourself.
That's it.
Which is, But the funny thing is, we have some guys at the dojo. Bob Andrews, he wants to fight. He was mad that they wouldn't let him fight.
Really?
I said, I want to fight.
That's
I'll start my own organization.
And you think Nikolai's going to stop?
Oh my gosh! First of all, Nikolai. He's a different animal.
Most Nikolais are.
I know, right? What is with that name and just becoming you're born a machine?
Yeah. So I'm fighting in the final match in, I think it was Spain, Malaga, at the Veterans World Championships, 2013, 2014. I don't remember what year that was. And I'm fighting the French guy, Rudenkopf, and we fought before, and he's beaten me a couple times already. So I'm like, I got to get this back. I got to get this guy back. We're in the finals now. I got to beat him. Last time he beat me, I had a bum knee. I tore my meniscus, and I was hobbling, and he only beat me by a penalty. So I'm going to beat him this time. And I felt good. I'm going, and we go and score. We're 3 minute matches. We're fighting, and we're tied. Okay, so now we're fighting some more in overtime, and something happens. We headbutt, and I didn't even feel it, but he cuts my eye open over my left eye, and he stops. He's a gentleman. He stops. He says, "Oh," and he stops. So they got my blood pouring out of my left eye. So blood stops. They tape it up, and they're putting gauze on it, and holding it, and I was kind of mad because I was pretty good shape then. And Brian Kent was training me, getting me ready for that. And I could tell he was getting tired, but now we had to stop. And they got to fix my blood. I'm trying to tell him, hurry up, put it on there. And so they tape my head up, right? But they tape it so tight, they trap my eyelid, so my eyelid is open. I can't blink. I go, wait, you got too much tape. So I'm trying to pull my eyelid out. So we go fight some more. Like a minute later, boom, he hits the other side. and now my other side of my eye is gushing, and my right eye is gushing. So I got blood pouring on this side now. So I go back, and I'm telling him, hurry up and tape it up, because I know he's tired. So we got it, and they did the same thing. Put the gauze on there, put tape around my head, and trap my eyelid again. So now this eye is stuck open, and I can't close my eyes. Like
so your Clockwork Orange, just eyes, just can't blink. You gotta put some eye drops in there.
So now we're fighting some more. We're going, and I can't close my eyes. I'm going, and I didn't want to. I know he trapped both my arms, and he was really strong. So I knew once he got both my arms trapped up like that, I was in trouble. And I got a penalty for stepping out of bounds. So I went the other way. And I didn't want to get my third penalty for stepping out of bounds. So I went the other way. And as I took my step to the left, he came in right and got underneath me and threw me. But it was a bloody match.
Yeah, when you said that, I thought, I'm like, oh, for sure he must have got nailed like more than once, in the course of a tournament, not more than once in the course of a single match.
Single match, gashed up in a single match.
Within 2-3 minutes, I was like, oh. And I don't know. I never felt it when he actually hit me. I never actually felt it. It was just
right. Yeah. And that's the one that gets you
every time. The ones you don't feel, the ones that get you.
Yeah, it was just a tap, right? Just like your eye.
Just like my eye. I barely got tapped and then got it. So I was wondering about if you adhere strictly to the whatever the rules of judo are, you immediately switch to when they say stop grabbing legs, you stop grabbing legs, and you don't even teach grabbing legs anymore. Is that? Do you feel like?
See, I was going to take it further back than that because you started judo in Arrow.
When you started there,
Kani Basame was still
you were talking. You could do. You tell me all the time.
You could do scissors. Kani Basame scissors was a good technique.
And good counter Uchimata.
Sure, absolutely.
And if you
single leg,
it still is a good throw if you do it right.
Sure.
The problem is so many people were doing it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you do Kami Basame, that one leg has to come up at the chest and one at the back of thighs.
Yeah.
Then you can throw. Problem is people were doing it at the ankle and the knees. And you'll screw somebody bad. You'll hurt
David
their
Becker
ankle.
got hurt that way.
Yeah. You'll hurt their knee. So it's really bad. I mean, it's a good throw if you do it right. But so I was competing when Kami Basame was still a legitimate throw.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
And leg grabs were legitimate throws.
That's a much more recent change. I mean, Kani Basame was out in the like 80s, like mid 80s.
That sounds about
right.
right. That sounds about right. Yeah.
So, do you agree with the rule? Do you think that that judo definitely needs to do something to separate itself from a wrestling, a sambo, a jiu-jitsu, or do you have split emotions on it? Or they're taking away a lot of great techniques. But
I can complain about all I want, but those are the rules, so we got to play by them.
Yeah.
Whether I agree with it or don't agree with it,
so don't waste energy on even thinking about it. Right.
My opinion is not going to change the decision makers, but I think they are taking away a lot of valid techniques. They have the reasons why they're doing it. They want to make the sport more user friendly. They want to make it spectator friendly. They want to make it more exciting. They do want to separate it from other martial arts because that's what they're looking for at the Olympic level, international Olympic level. And, I didn't believe it at first, but then when they dropped wrestling out of the Olympics, I could not believe that.
Right.
Wrestling is one of the original Olympic sports.
Yeah, absolutely.
They took it out of the Olympics. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Then I realized, okay, maybe these guys up there know what they're talking about. Maybe. And so, you can't argue with it anyways. So you might as well try to figure out how to play in those.
You got to
rules.
adapt to it.
You have to adapt. And that's what judo is. Judo is adapting and making your techniques work to your opponent. And your opponent might be this way, might be this way, might be big, strong, might be small, fast. You have to learn how to make your judo work against anybody. And that's just another obstacle. You have to make your judo work within the rules. And judo players are smart. You see when they say no leg grabs that eliminate kataguruma, now you see these guys come up with some fantastic versions of kataguruma that are just so explosive.
Right. You were showing that one today where I've never even seen that version before. I've always seen kataguruma from
which is a fireman's carry.
Fireman's carry, right?
And where you grab the leg 100% of the time. I saw today where you did it with both sleeves, and I was like, "What was that?"
Changing the rules will pretty much always result in some kind of innovation.
Right.
People will either drop a technique entirely and be like, I can't do this anymore, or they'll find a way.
Yeah. There's always a way.
And not all the rules are bad changes. I mean, I remember back in the day when I was competing, your judo gis, they didn't have rules on your judo gis.
Thickness right.
or size. I mean, so we would sew up the judo gi sleeves that were tighter than jiu-jitsu gis.
Right.
If you can't grab somebody, you can't throw them.
Right.
You can't throw them, right? And You try to grab a gi that fits like a T-shirt. I mean, that thick material,
Right.
you know, that's why everybody used to wear tape on the fingers just so they can grab.
Right.
And just hold on, okay, to whatever you can grab. But now they made rules saying, no, it has to have so much, you know, length in the sleeve and width in the sleeves and down to the wrist. Okay, those are good rules. Those are good rules.
I remember the first time that I had, so all the gis that I'd ever felt were like single weave or double weave. I had never felt one of the thick old ones. I'm like, what is this? And my coach was like, yeah, it's like a triple weave.
You can't even grab the collar.
No, it's so thick on the
There's no way
collar.
you're going to choke anybody because it doesn't bend.
Yeah, it's funny now when I show people the difference. First of all, when what do you call people that don't do grappling? Normal people? I don't know.
Civilians.
Yeah, civilians. those weirdos. When they pick up my jiu-jitsu gi and they're like, "Oh wow, this is heavier than I thought it was." They were expecting a karate or style gi or whatever, and they're like, and then I go, "No, that's not a knife. This is."
Pull out the
pull
double
out the
weave
judo gi,
gi.
and they're like,
Yeah.
"Holy cow!" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's without the sweat."
Yeah. No, really does feel like armor at that point.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the old gis were super heavy, thick, and you wash them and dry them, they'll stand up on their own.
I think some people I've trained with, theirs will stand up on their own too.
For different reasons,
different
though.
reasons.
So, anyhow, gentlemen, I hate to do this, but I think we're going to have to wrap
Yeah,
it
I
up
think
here.
so,
It's
man.
getting a little late in the night, and I still have to go to work tonight.
Yeah, we have to
I'd
get
like
up.
to get some time in. Are we gonna go show some judo technique?
We'll have. Hopefully, I will survive the legendary Tomio Nage. This has been really great.
All
Well,
right,
thank you very much for having me on with you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And I highly recommend, as somebody who comes from a jiu-jitsu background, that I think jiu-jitsu people are missing out on at the minimum just trying some judo, at least. God, for the love of everything that is holy and everything that everybody that we put pictures of on our wall of, have a takedown, have a foot sweep. You know, it's not to mention, can you do something other than grab a hold of your opponent's gi and stiff arm the hell out of them? And
Well, you can find ways to work around that by practicing it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I highly recommend going out, hitting up a judo club and trying this out. You never know. It'll do nothing but improve. It'll improve your newaza too. The way I move in my newaza has definitely changed just from our gripping standpoint and movement patterns.
Different priorities.
Absolutely.
So now, where can people find you? Where's the school at?
So we're located on the north side, or at 4427 North Clark Street in Chicago, and we're located in the backside of the Japanese American Service Committee building. So you ever in the need or interested in doing judo classes, please come on by.
All right.
Come on by.
Website, social media?
Well, yep, the website is www.tohkon.com, TOHKON.com. And if you want to call, you can always call and leave a message. It's 773-784-7766.
All right, cool. Thanks.
All right.
All right, let's go do some judo, guys.
I'm going
Sounds
to
like
prepare
fun.
my back. Here we go.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Very Hard to Submit. Go to vhtsny.com and check out their kimonos, compression gear, and apparel. This is a brand we are excited to be supported by. Their gear is high quality with a clean design. Go to vhtsny.com and see for yourself. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. For more information about Grappler Union Podcast, you could visit us at our website at grapplerunion.com. You can follow us on Instagram at Grappler Union. Please like us on Facebook. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes. And all of our episodes are available on our YouTube channel. Say what?
Be sure to subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe to all that shit. You got to do another take, right?
Oh.